Şu anda Amerika'da Harvard Üniversitesi'nde okuyorum. YGA'nın Global Impact programıyla geçen yaz tanışmıştım. Bugün gidiyoruz çocuklarla köy okullarında deney yapıyoruz, proje yapıyoruz. Onlara yardım ediyoruz. Onlar bize bazı şeyler gösteriyor, biz bir şeyler öğreniyoruz onlardan. Ama günün sonunda hepsiyle vedalaşırken insanın kafasından ister istemez şöyle bir şey geçiyor. Mutlaka şu anda o okuldaki öğrencilerin birinde veya birden fazlasında bir iz bırakmış olmalıyım düşüncesi insana inanılmaz mutluluk veren bir fikir. Sadece bilimden çok daha öte bir durum var burada ve ben bunun bilim seferberliğinden daha çok bir umut seferberliği olduğunu düşünüyorum.
Ben Ece, Boston Üniversitesi'nde bilgisayar mühendisi ve felsefe okuyorum. Bütün köydeki insanlar inanılmaz içtenlerdi ve benim belki de kendi evimde hissetmediğim o koşulsuz sevgiyi gösterdiler. İnsan sorguluyor yani bunun için ne yaptım ki diye.
Onları yemeklerken onlara çok güzel ziyafetler çekeceğim, elimle pişireceğim. Bizim örf adetimiz bu. Biz onu en iyi şekilde ağırlarız, en iyi şekilde onun misafirperverliğimizi yaparız. Buradan gittiği zaman sadece ceketini alıp gitmez. Ben yapamadım, çocuklarım yapsın. Var gücümle koşuyorum, çocuklarımın arkasındayım. Çocuklarımı okutuyorum. Böyle yurt dışından, iyi bir okullardan böyle insanlar kalkıp bizim köyümüze gelip böyle bir şeyler yapıyorsa bir heyecan var, bir istek var. Bunların yaptığını biz de yaparsak biz de belki bir yerlere geliriz, hissi uyanacak gibime geliyor.
Ben öğretmenlerimden duydum. Cuma günü demişlerdi hatta. Duyuru yaptılar o zamandan. Dediler ki Amerika'dan falan gelecekler size proje falan öğretecekler dedi. Hayalimi gerçeğe dönüştürdüm. Hatta gerçeği hayale dönüştürdüm.
To find the right resources while preparing their children for the jobs of the future. But we've got your back. Meet Twin School, where we teach must-have skills for the jobs of tomorrow. After enrolling, children aged 8 to 11 start learning coding and artificial intelligence with weekly interactive lessons, along with follow-up live sessions with our tutors. They can start anytime and watch previous lessons that catch up too. With each session, they are given tasks to complete with TwinApp or with TwinKits to apply their knowledge and create meaningful hands-on projects. They will learn to seek solutions for real-life problems instead of being passive learners. Our unique curriculum is designed with humanitarian values in mind. Children will learn to apply technology for a better future while developing their own tech for good projects. A smart cane for the visually impaired, an earthquake alarm, a sustainable farm. These are just a few of the projects our Twinner community has come up with. Visit twinscience.com and enroll now. You can choose among the best fitting packages according to your child's needs and interests. With Twin School, you will have the confidence and peace of mind knowing your little one is now future ready.
Bunun bir dönüm noktası olacağını biliyordum ama bu kadar etkili bir değişim yaşayacağımızı düşünmemiştim.
Veri bilimi alanında ilerlemek için kendimde hiçbir zaman o cesareti bulamadım. Upschool'un bu programını, Data Science programını görünce çok heyecanlandım ve başvurmak istedim.
Daha önce dijital pazarlama alanında çalışıyordum ama yazılım alanına geçmek istiyordum. Nasıl başlayacağımı bilemedim.
İçerikte tercihen mühendis adaylar kısmında tercihen kelimesi benim için umut oldu. Ve bundan güç alarak başvurdum. Kabul davetini aldığım zaman, mülakat davetini aldığım zaman çok sevindim. Her aşaması düşünülmüş ve çok titiz planlanmış bir eğitimde.
2 aylık bir süreçte gerçekten hiç bilmediğim bir programın temellerini öğrenip artık onun yazılımını yapacak düzeyde bilgi edinmiş oldum.
4 ay süren teknik eğitimde Python kodlaması, istatistik, lineer cebir, NLP, computer vision ve aynı zamanda makine öğrenmesi gibi birçok alanda teknik eğitim aldık. Bununla birlikte de Google gibi dünya çapında tanınmış şirketlerde çalışan mühendislerden de eğitim alma fırsatı yakaladık.
Robotik süreç otomasyonu hakkında herhangi bir bilgim yoktu ama şu anda Türkiye'nin öncü firmalarından birisinde RPA Developer olarak çalışıyorum. Başladığım ilk haftada bir projeyi 8 saatten 2 saate düşüren bir geliştirme yaptım.
Hep rekabet ettirilen bir nesiliz. Yani üniversite sınavı, liseye giriş sınavları hep böyle birilerinin üstüne çıkma çabasıyla o şekilde çalıştırılmışız. Ama Upschool'da birlikte başarma duygusu hakimde. Biz hepimiz birbirimizi birlikte yükselttik.
Mentörümüzün desteğiyle birlikte her buluşmamızda aslında bir iç yolculuğa çıktık. Şu anda program bitti fakat benim içimde ve sonraki hayatımda da hep devam edecek. Bu 4 ayda değişen benim kariyer yolculuğum değil, hayat yolculuğum oldu.
YGA günümüzün toplumlarının kötücül sorunlarına sosyal ve inovasyon temelli çözümler bulan ve bunu da teknoloji kaldırıcıyla yapan bir atmosfer, bir iklim bence.
Sizce İstanbul çift kanatlı girişimcilerin, çift kanatlı girişimlerin buluştuğu bir yer olsa İstanbul'a yakışmaz mı?
Hangi ortamda Türkiye'nin en iyi üniversitelerinden böyle elle seçilmiş 2000 kişiyi bulup hitap etmem mümkün? Ben başka bir yer bilmiyorum. Beni layık gördüğünüz için bu topluluğa teşekkür ederim.
YGA gençleri olarak bizleri bekleyen geleceğe yaratıcılık ve cesaretle hazırlandığınızı biliyorum.
I think YGA is a critical building block for all this. I support it and will continue to support it. That opened my eyes to a whole vista of opportunities.
Very interesting combination of entrepreneurial activity, a good message around the heart and service and being a servant to the community.
Bilimi çok basit tarif ediyorum. Meraklı insanın hakikati bulmak üzere çıktığı yol.
Onların ileride daha fazla sorumluluklar alarak Türkiye'yi güzel yerlere götüreceğine inanıyorum. Young Grew aşk diye tabir ederim.
Yüreğiniz şarkı söylerse eğer, hayat sizi mutlaka dansa kaldıracaktır.
I was very impressed and surprised to learn that YGA has 50,000 applicants for their conference every year. This is more competitive than the HBS application process at Harvard Business School.
YGA günümüzün toplumlarının kötücül sorunlarına sosyal ve inovasyon temelli çözümler bulan ve bunu da teknoloji kaldırıcıyla yapan bir atmosfer, bir iklim bence.
Sizce İstanbul çift kanatlı girişimcilerin, çift kanatlı girişimlerin buluştuğu bir yer olsa İstanbul'a yakışmaz mı?
Hangi ortamda Türkiye'nin en iyi üniversitelerinden böyle elle seçilmiş 2000 kişiyi bulup hitap etmem mümkün? Ben başka bir yer bilmiyorum. Beni layık gördüğünüz için bu topluluğa teşekkür ederim.
YGA gençleri olarak bizleri bekleyen geleceğe yaratıcılık ve cesaretle hazırlandığınızı biliyorum.
I think YGA is a critical building block for all this. I support it and will continue to support it. That opened my eyes to a whole vista of opportunities.
Very interesting combination of entrepreneurial activity, a good message around the heart and service and being a servant to the community.
Bilimi çok basit tarif ediyorum. Meraklı insanın hakikati bulmak üzere çıktığı yol.
Onların ileride daha fazla sorumluluklar alarak Türkiye'yi güzel yerlere götüreceğine inanıyorum. Young Grow aşk diye tabir ederim.
Yüreğiniz şarkı söylerse eğer, hayat sizi mutlaka dansa kaldıracaktır.
I was very impressed and surprised to learn that YGA has 50,000 applicants for their conference every year. This is more competitive than the HBS application process at Harvard Business School.
Herkese merhaba. Well, good morning everyone. I would like to welcome you once again. Welcome to the 21st YGA Summit. It was last time in this hall, 19th YGA Summit, and we had an extraordinary 2 years. But no matter how tired we were and waking up to an unknown every morning, we never lost our way to get stronger. So, while I was preparing the beginning part of this speech, I received a video and I said, yes, this is exactly what I meant to simply tell this morning. We just edited a part, well, and I do apologize for the technical parts because this is not my specialty. This is the video.
About climate injustice. No action is too small.
We just have to band together as a community and get people's lives back.
Even as we grieved, we grew, that even as we hurt, we hoped, that even as we tired, we tried, that we'll forever be tied together, victorious. We cannot keep quiet about...
Well, this is a very short clip. There are 3 things which I saw on this video: believing, having hope, and coming together once again for a better world. And after 2 years, we're so happy, glad that we came together. Welcome once again. Let me talk about myself. I'm YGA. A decade ago, I was a third-year high school student. I was in this hall, sitting on these seats, and I remember I had huge eyes. And I was really questioning whether this day was real, and it was one of the special days of my life, and then became a volunteer. And then I studied business administration at Boğaziçi University, and I had volunteering time of more than 3,000 hours. And then I graduated in digital e-commerce industry. I was still volunteering for YGA projects on my weekends and in my spare time. I could tell you that this decade, the volunteers I met at YGA, the dream partners, the volunteers, the role models, shaped and changed my dreams from simply great dimension. And then 6 months ago, I switched to another position, not volunteering, but not volunteering only on weekends, and simply working for YGA. And 6 months ago, I started to work as the communication department head of YGA, and Professor Doğan, who passed away, and he always would say that, dear Doğan, Professor Doğan would say that, well, happy who they are able to find the blessing of their heart, and I was able to find that as well. And even my parents, they were questioning, well, YGA is growing so fast, what's behind it? And I took a point of explaining it to them. Mom, Dad, there is only one thing. Young people who are searching for a better world and trying to find a meaning. But when we go onto the street and look at the other people, as well as young in search of a meaning, people who don't smile, people who are stressed, who are without hopes and depressed, and these are young people who are angry. Well, actually, young people is like a water, a very clear water, which should be flowing immensely, as we could see in this chart. And when you look at this one, the youth is like this huge impact, that clear and high-speed waterfall. However, it is filled with depression, it is simply hopelessness, and it is going downwards, and it is wasted. Well, we were thinking, we have been talking about this internally as a team for many months. Let's do something to change the direction of this water. And actually we have it. We have, you see the water, these water arches, but the water wheels, we don't see those, right? Water wheels were a solution with the technology of 700 years ago. It takes the water from the bottom and then it turns and makes it flow onto the top part. So it is indeed preventing the wasting of the water and also making sure that the water is distributed to the most remote parts of the city. Well, when I saw that, I was very touched. A wise person, a philosopher who saw this picture with the inspiration they got from this picture. If this were a poem, what would that be? Do you have any idea? I take the water from the bottom and I turn and I simply pour it to the bottom, to the top, and see what I have been suffering from, and I'm mourning because I have problems. Yunus Emre wrote Dertli Dolap 700 years ago. And actually, this is completely something which changed my perspective on having problems or trying to come up with a solution to the problems in terms of getting troubled or complaining. And it has now given me a complete perspective, no longer complaining or whining, but trying to find a solution to the problems suffered by all of the humanity. And Yunus Emre was a great wise person, and UNESCO announced this year as the International Year of Yunus Emre, the 700th anniversary of Yunus Emre, and this marks a special occasion for us as YGA. We designed so many great notions for this year, and I would like to give you a gist of what is awaiting us. So maybe you know that the theme of this year is let's see the upside down, upside. So science, art, sports, entrepreneurship, business, which are rather different disciplines, and people who are the double wing role models, who are seeing or trying to see the upside and the good part. And as you could see over here, the new success impact, the new solution prediction, the new harmony, art and science, the new influencer, good influencers, we have those people among us. Under these themes, we're going to be hearing very striking and impressive speeches. And the young people and the volunteers are probably already very active, I know that. And we are on Discord for days. It has been immense activity over there. So for these 2 days, you can ask your questions, and the dream partners and the volunteers, we can get to one another and feel one another more on the digital scene. So we have another thing which we are doing for the first time with our digital partner TikTok, and we are carrying the digital summit spirit to TikTok as well. We have the hashtag #İyiyeBak, look at the good, and with small actions we would like to invite everyone to show that they could make a difference in the world. And you are all kindly invited to TikTok #İyiyeBak movement. And last but not least, we have a great surprise, and I'm looking forward to this bit. At 12:30, Fazıl Say and Jamal Aliyev are going to be putting up a special concert for YGA. I'm sure it's going to be rather difficult to leave screens, but still, just simply in case, put it on your alarm clock. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. Thanks to our dream partner, we started to work with İKSV. Esra Eczacıbaşı made it happen. And with the support of the Netherlands Consulate General of Istanbul, with the inspiration of Yunus Emre, we are going to have a collective digital work for the first time. And happy they who are trying to find a solution to the problems. And without further ado, I would like to invite İKSV Alt Kat Director Beril Oktan and Beril Sarualtun to the stage. Welcome. Thank you very much, Ayça. Thank you very much. After months of Zooming, this is the first time that we are seeing one another. Elif Hanım, let me first ask you. So in this process, this is a reality. Beats by Girls and İKSV is using the connective power of music and culture, whereas YGA is trying to create an impact of using the power of youth and entrepreneurship. These three NGOs or initiatives came together for an impact, and hopefully at the end of these 24 hours it's going to be a very meaningful narrative for social impact. Elif Hanım, how did you meet YGA? Well, thank you so much. As İKSV, we are very happy that these three NGOs came together for a collaboration. Let me put it that way. I'm the director of Alt Kat İKSV, so primarily with children and young people. For all of the other segments of the society, we are working to increase the access to culture and arts. When we first came together with YGA, we were thinking what we could do for the summit. Görgün Taner, our MD, said that throughout the pandemic, we healed our bodies with science and we healed our minds with culture. And we were really inspired by that. We wanted to come up with a new project which is combining, juxtaposing both the art, culture and the science. And with the support of the General Consulate of Netherlands in Istanbul in Turkey, we dreamed of a project and we invited Beats by Girls, and this is how we came up with this project. Ayça talked about this the new harmony, science and art. It is actually a direct reference to that notion. I would like to talk about the inclusion of Beats by Girls and what they're doing. Essentially speaking, young women and girls through music and technology are empowered by an international initiative as Beats by Girls Turkey. So this is actively operational in more than 35 countries in the world. And we have training and visibility projects in Turkey, and like YGA and YGA, we are involved in very meaningful collaborations. And Sound of Upside is going to be an example of that. And I do hope that it's going to be, and I believe that it's going to be a great example. This is actually one of the most collective ways of doing and achieving something together. Can you talk about the objective and the details of this project? You get started with the objective and I will continue with the other details. Okay, so as a matter of fact, in the general sense of the word, this is where we are going to be using the connective power of technology and culture, how the producers and musicians are working. This is what we're going to witness, and then we're going to see their live performance. And in the heart of the project, everyone will be simultaneous and freely contribute to this project, gathering together different voices. This is going to be a new harmony. As YGA, with the young people, we really love producing in a dynamic and creative environment. We do care about the mutual exchange, and actually all together we are dreaming of changing the world with culture and art. At the end of this project, Beril will be talking about the details, and we're going to have a collective brand new work of art, and all of the summit participants will be invited to take part in that. Let's talk about the details. We have a Discord channel of Sound of the Upside, and all of the followers are actively using it. I know that because I checked that. And you are going to be asked to submit sound folders, but you have to be very careful and carefully observe the new success, the impact, and içinizden gelenler, or whatever you feel like sharing. So I'm going to ask you to share sound folders. The details are on Discord, and while using those sounds, and me and Beats by Girls Turkey team, we are going to be sharing a work. I will be sharing and updating you on Discord and 9:20, so please be in front of your screens as of 9:20 for 2.5 hours. We will get control of the broadcast, and some young musicians, guest musicians, will accompany me from Turkey and from Netherlands. And we know that the smallest theme or the smallest sentence comes with some simple connotations. This is what we're going to do with music. So I'm just trying to, I'm going to ask you to imagine those details. Okay, well, now we're going to send you off to studio. Well, take care, everyone. It's going to be a lovely day. I know that for a fact. Thank you so much. We're going to send Beril. But we will be keeping an eye on Discord, Sound of the Upside room. So get into the entrance room. After you get your approvals, after your musician roles are defined, you will be able to share your own sounds. And at 9:20 this tonight, we're going to hear the guest artists from Turkey and Netherlands. And I'm very, very excited. And I'm sure that it's going to be a very extraordinary co-achievement story. So, high impact projects implementation is very important at YGA. We care about two things: discovering together, taking decisions together. And we have a very significant dream partner who shares these ideals with us. So for some time, we have been thinking about what are the hopes or what are the various concerns of the young people. And with Serdar Abi, brother Serdar, on another hand, we are discussing with Serdar Abi, can we measure the impact of success and how we can do that? We have so many questions. And now, we have Harvard Business Turkey Editor-in-Chief Serdar Turan, and I would like to invite him to the stage. Serdar abi, welcome. So the floor is yours, Serdar Bey. Thank you so much. Dear Ayça, good morning everyone. After such a long time, we're not on the screens, but speaking, addressing to a present audience gave me a great feeling as well. It was 6 or 7 years ago, I received a press release, and with Ali Koç and YGA are holding a meeting at Koç Museum. And normally, I love going to the press conferences. You know, this is where I'm fat, and I just wanted to simply have a whiff of Golden Horn and also hear Ali Koç. And I sat down and I heard that they were talking about great things, how to use technology so that they could come up with the solutions to the problems. And I said, aha, this is it. And then, you know, I was in a high spirit. Someone shouted out to me. And there was sort of a very misty environment, and it was dark. Someone came up running to me, Serdar, Serdar. I stopped, you know, what is that? And then they told me that Sinan abi is going to see you. I said, what is this? Just like, you know, the minister would like to see you. Well, you know, I had only 15 minutes. You know, we are going to send the magazine to printing. Sinan abi, and I sat down. Is this Sinan abi? And then we asked for Linden tea. And then Sinan started to talk about what he would like to do, and he found a napkin, and he drew a framework regarding the capabilities. When I saw that, I couldn't believe my eyes, because that was what we were trying to simply explain to the different generations for years. In terms of the set skills. And he said, you know, well, I agree with you because I drew it. And for 1.5 hours at that table, almost every insight that we would like to emphasize in Harvard Business Review, we saw that it had its correspondence at YGA. And at the end of the day, we were so happy to say that, well, that's okay. And that said, maybe as a theoretically, as a magazine, as a key opinion leader, whatever we are trying to put into theory, this was what I saw. So it was not in the academy, in the systematic content, or in the corporate enterprises that it was perfectly put into utilization. Since then, I have been a great dream partner and a big believer in YGA and everything it is aspiring to do. So this is the short story in a nutshell. Everyone works so hard. So as the first speaker, I would like to call everyone to give a huge round of applause for everyone who worked very hard today. Well, dear friends, dear guests, now I would like to talk about these things with the Harvard Business Review perspective. For almost a century, a publication perspective which is trying to put everything, these insights into a framework, and the world that we're going through, how that would look in the upcoming times, and on this YGA journey, what is awaiting us, and some of the repercussions in our research, as I just said. So, dear friends, this is what we need to accept. This is what we need to put forward. The period that we're going through and the upcoming times are not going to be very easy. In mid-1960s, in Journal of Medicine Science, there was this problem called wicked problem. This is how the definition of a problem which you can solve with a single recipe or method by a single government or stakeholder. So these are the problems that we're going to see in the future, and perhaps, you know, we are being rather unfair and putting the responsibility and the burden onto the shoulders of young people such as you. And the majority of them, I'm afraid, are going to be wicked problems. And the voters are not going to be very clear voters. On the contrary, there are going to be ambiguities and simply inconsistencies and simply uncharted waters. And the weather is not going to be always very clear. But this is not going to simply drop our mood down. When the pandemic first started, Harvard Business Review alumni were given 3 webinars, Robert Captain, Dutch Cohen, and he works on change management, Amy Edmondson, psychological safety and assurance. And they appeared thousands of Harvard Business Review, Harvard alumni, and how are we going to act as leaders? And this is the answer. We don't know, but actually we are preparing you so that you can get prepared.
That's the reality of the coming period. Trying to resolve the wicked problems in challenging and foggy waters. Everything that has a small likelihood of taking place can happen to us. We need to check for that in the coming period. The behavioral characteristics and the strategic characteristics of the companies face actually events that are likely to happen with a small possibility. They try to spare small budget for that, but that is not the situation moving ahead. This is an health institute in America and a simulation study in 2019. In an exaggerated scenario, there is this expression in highlighted background. It says there is this forecast giving a 90% chance that the pandemic will be of very high severity with 110 million forecasted illnesses, 7.7 million forecasted hospitalizations. If you said it back then, you would say it's such a hype. I mean, 586,000 deaths in the US alone. Did it happen? That happened. This is called predictable surprises, according to Marx Weizerman. So we are going to see black swans, etc. I mean, all those swans are awaiting us. You know the reason for that? All the problems we encounter are interconnected with each other, intertwined with each other. That's the most important characteristic of wicked problems. You do something about climate change, then you disrupt the income. You try to take care of the income, you damage social justice. So whenever you do something, actually the elements are interconnected and they have an impact on another. That's why you have to take into consideration these elements in this new period. So we have to change the mindset, and the business world has come to understand that slowly, which is bad. We would have expected them to understand more quickly, and we have valuable representatives from the business community today. From the world of just now and quickly mind world, we are moving to a world where we want to share things in the long term. Milton Friedman defines 3 rules of free capitalism, free market capitalism, and we know that the business community ignores long-term externalities for the sake of short-term benefits. Today, a coal quarry pays the money for the coal they are firing, but they don't take any responsibility for the CO2 emissions. That has been the case for years, but we have come to a period where we have to take into consideration the expectations of workers, consumers, and everyone, including you students. So rather than having a personal gain, we are now focusing on the longer gain. And as Michael Porter said, we are talking about a shared value. So rather than killing your rival and taking the whole cake, you try to create a bigger one. And here everyone needs to exert their efforts for a common goal. I just said we should achieve things together, and achieving things together is de facto, and there is no other solution in this current world, socially and economically speaking, dear friends. And we gradually realize that human beings are not algorithms. Homo economicus which says that we make logical reasons for ourselves, is over. Human beings have biases in the quest for their desires, in the quest for the meaning. We have come to accept human beings with their characteristics without turning human beings into an algorithm, into a mechanical structure. We are headed for a period where we accept human beings as they are, and we have 160 biases, as you see in the background. As we love, as we create relationships with people, as we interact with people, there are shortcuts, quick solutions, which heal us, which make us good, which also make us become worse. I mean, we cannot, for example, drive our car as we think about them. Do you drive your vehicle just with certain decisions? No, you do that automatically, and you follow other people when they take decisions. If 10 people say something is blue in a room, then you try to side with them even if you see it as green. So biases are actually an indispensable nature of human beings, and that's what makes human beings beautiful. And we try to navigate in this world. We see a huge gap, and we see this break. We haven't seen such a break previously. Why? Because we discovered that our presumptions might not be correct. The formulas that brought us here may not be able to take us further. That's what we realize. Something that worked for 50 years may not work in the 51st year. So we need to move from the linear to exponential picture, where you have 1 turning into 2, 2 turning into 4, 4 turning into 16, and 16 turning into 256. That's why Netflix comes and dethrones a century-old set of media giants in 10 years, or Getir, a groceries application, changes the rules of retailer. And here we should be understanding this break very well rather than getting in that trap, because if a tie is severed, something else fills that gap, and whether something good or bad will fill in that gap is based on our initiative, dear friends. That's why the theme is important today. What do we say? The new success is impact. And here you need to create a value, not just for yourself, but for all the stakeholders. Is it possible? Yes. You just see YGA. Do you need to refer to another example? No. The new solution requires prediction, understanding today well, realizing where you want to go in the future, and shaping the route accordingly. The new harmony, art and science, using the left and right hand side brain. Today we're talking about disruption. Who else is concerned about actually transformation? Artists. And we see its ramification on the business world. These are all critical issues. And when art and science comes together, we see an amazing mix. The new influencer is good influencer. So the impact opportunity, the channel are deployed for good causes. They are also important. So dear friends, we come to encounter this outcome then. We should start by asking 3 questions. First, who are we? Who are going to be sad when we leave this world? What opportunities would disappear? What is our value? What is our purpose? What are the main elements of our culture, and how aware are we of it? One of the most discussed issues concerns contextual awareness. How aware are you of the dynamics of your current context? How do you differentiate your dream world and real world? That's very important. Who are we? Second, how do we operate? What is our model? How much more value can we extract? What contribution can we make to the essence of that value? Third, how do we grow? How do we go to somewhere farther than our current spot? How can we have more cooperations so that we can create further value? These are the main questions. And dear friends, we are going through such a world. And we ask our friends what they felt within the YGA ecosystem. That's their feeling. How does it look? Just take a look. Worry, anxiety, fear, chaos, struggle, but you also have hope, curiosity, evrim, evolution there, enthusiasm, awakening, but they are small. The big ones are negative. Should we fear this picture though? Well, it depends on where you look at it from. If you have a pessimistic perspective, we'll say the youth are in a bad situation. What a negativity. But I just said these are actually concerns we have. Unless we have those concerns, we cannot set that fire. Unless we have concerns, we cannot bring that energy and the solution. This picture looks negative now. But what does Yunus Emre says? If you have the world as a trouble, then you have a world of troubles. Many troubles. If we are candidates for transforming this world, and if as older generations we are viciously saying that we actually destroyed this world, but you're going to change it without any resources, we are giving you the responsibility. It's like saying, I couldn't study and become an engineer, my dear child, you should become. So if you are to change this world, dear friends, you are the main dynamic, and this concern is an asset. If we don't fall down, this concern will be the trigger for us, the driver for us. If the youth are given the opportunity, we will work actually to resolve this issue. 80% says yes, 20% says no, we cannot resolve it. The education, health, climate technology initiatives, I think, will change the planet in a good way. And 94% says yes. So there's this if clause. If you walk with me, if you provide me resources, if you help me, I will take care of the problems, the youth says. Also, when we ask about them the source of inspiration that helps them keep their hope and motivation high in challenging times, they says what I read by 64%. Are the youth selfish? The role model accounts for only 11%. No, dear friends, we are going back to our essence as a natural outcome of this period. We are asking who we are. What can I do? Is it my responsibility? The moment when we go back to our essence, then we see a dynamic that helps us improve ourselves. I read things, I think about things, I internalize things, I question things. I'm not doing them as I'm told. That's what the youth says. The role model accounts for 11%. Here you might think of men and women from business communities as we know. Or we see very important people in politics. We see important scientists. But role model isn't something like that anymore. Ayça is a role model today. Mina, Kürşat, they are the new role models. We need to check people around us. We should not get actually disconnected from the people around us. Kürşat's activities for walking will inspire us. Mina's efforts for ensuring women have technology capabilities will inspire us. Or seeing the evolution of a startup established by a friend will inspire us. We should not lose sight of them when we talk about role models. What does the African adage says? If you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go farther, let's walk together. Let's go together. So we need the latter. When we have a distance that enables us to achieve actually mobility rather than the victory. And we ask this question regarding social media. We ask them to evaluate their social media uses. What does the group says? I follow daily news and developments. Okay, what else? I can express myself freely. Let's look at the orange one. I'm sharing it to share good news and impact the environment I live in. We need to increase that. We need to make good things commonplace. Why? Because the new success is defined by impact, right? And it's easier in our circumstances when an individual is rightly positioned, can make marvelous impact. Make use of this. Please spread power, good things, and inspiration. Do not stand in the passive mode. Please proceed to a destination where you can be more active. Also, we have intention and action gap in the business world. When you look at this cliff, one of the biggest challenges is socially, economically, appears as such. We all support environmental products. We know the importance of environmental issues, but we don't take actions. When consumers are asked whether they support the companies churning out environmental products, 96% says yes. Who buys? Only 80%. So we need to cover that 60% gap. Action is a critical item, and we need to take action. There are many insights concerning the use of fossil fuels, for example, that they will disappear, that we're going to have applied sciences and skills rather than test-based system in education, and having a healthcare system where we stay healthy without getting sick. So the prevention systems will be implemented more and more in the coming period, as we see in the intentions of future actors and actresses. How are we going to continue to stand in the face of these difficulties though? We need to accumulate capital, which is psychological capital. Newtonson defined this hero concept almost 50 years ago. So first, we must have hope. We must preserve our strength that we can transform things. We'll have efficacy. We'll not just wait there, but rather deploy our resources. We'll not just get deterred because we are by ourselves. Resilience. We will continue to stand and continue to walk even after we get a damage. Optimism is the belief that we can change the world as we live in it. Of course, being a hero is not easy. In 1991, Harvard Business Review, in 1999, Harvard Business Review author Peter Drucker published this article, Managing Oneself, and he summarized all these things. Who am I? What is my identity? Do I stand somewhere where I see things corresponding to my identity? If that's the case, yes, you're doing great. Otherwise, you are just having difficulties and skidding. So we need to ask these questions again: who we are, what we do, how we do that. And here you see the answers. By creating impact, by having a proactive look at the future, by combining art and science, and by creating influence, impact in a good direction. A short while ago, Julie Battalina published this book through Harvard Business School. It's called Power for All. And she defines power as the capacity to be able to change the behaviors of others. So if you can change their behavior, then you are strong. But the functional definition goes as such. Actually, access to resources valued by others. So if you have a resource, if I have it, I'm strong. If you need money, and if I have money, then I'm strong. If you want to participate in the YGA event, and if I take care of the access here, then I'm powerful. Don't forget this. Power is not something that is owned. It is something that is actually attributed to. When we look at the most important value attributed by the business community to the society is talent, competencies. The business people within this hall will tell you about it in the break. This is their priority. Why? Because you are the value. You are the subject of the value attributed by the others. First, be aware of that. When you become aware of that, you will learn that you have the power on an individual and collective basis. And the transformation with dream, the transformation that will unfold will be based on that power. However, Professor Julia says you need to do 3 more things. You need to speak, agitate, tell. Second, innovate, come up with new solutions. Third, that's not enough, orchestrate people who bring together those innovative solutions. Does it remind anything? Does it remind you of anything? It does. Think of YGA. Think of people who have concerns, who create innovative solutions, and think of an ecosystem, an atmosphere where those people come together. That's why YGA is a value, and that's why YGA is a strength. We are looking, we are in a quest. What does Beyazıt Bistami says? You cannot find just by looking, but those who find are the ones who are looking for it. Hopefully, this quest is a continuous one for you. Thank you very much. Serdar abi, what is my concern and what solution do I find in the end? I think we will ask these questions for the next 2 days. It's great that Serdar abi said that we have low barriers for that impact.
We're going to have an entrepreneur. And last year at YGA Summit, we had launch and movement and entrepreneurship to increase the role of women in technology, and it was awarded hundreds of different successful awards, and it indeed multiplied in time. Mina, Sabancı University Economics Department graduate, and she volunteered at YGA for more than 5,000 hours. In May 2021, she established the entrepreneurship initiative that she contributed to. Now she's going to take the floor. Mina, hi, welcome, thank you. Well, now that Ayça gave the details, it has been such a long time. As we heard from Ayça, we did the launch of Upschool. More than 150 women were trained to start their career in technology, and more than 50% of them are currently working. And we are on an investment tour which is still very fast going on. I'm going to go back to the previous times, and the reason is that having this session is very meaningful and valuable for me. And I'm going to share the rest of the story when our guest arrives. They don't know it yet, but it's going to be an interactive session right now. It's going to be very short. Can I kindly ask everyone to stand up, please? Ask everyone to stand up. Well, don't you worry, it's not going to be an eccentric thing. No hugging, so on and so forth. Okay. So, I'm going to tell you a few expressions. If you believe they are valid for you, you could keep standing. If not, you could sit down. Honesty is essential. Let me get started with the first sentence. Those who are sharing their success recipes with YGA can keep standing. Okay. Who are acting as consultants for a YGA for more than 5 years. Okay. Lovely. The former dream partners. Okay. Well, it's great to see that. Other than that, who volunteered 1,000 hours and more. So 1,000 is rather high, right? Okay, I'm going deeper. I'm going to be very fast. Turkey's or world's leading universities. If you have taught at universities, we have academics, I know that. If you have taught at these schools. Lovely. Seminar, of course, it's valid, Sinan abi. If you won the award of the most daring dream partner of YGA, and if you dream that I'm going to be establishing YGA when I was a kid, Şule abla, I don't know that. Erhan Erkut, okay, so I'm going to be inviting you to the stage. Welcome. This is for winter and this is for summer. Hi Mina, how are you doing? I'm perfect. I'm going to take you through the details why I feel so good. So it's 30th of March 2020. You wouldn't remember that, by the way. Well, of course, I'm an old person. Well, UpSchool's first programs were kicked off and I was very excited. And when we first opened the first applications, we started to have them on Monday and afternoon. We have a meeting. My partner Melike would be there. And you know, Erhan Bey is one of the very top names. And I was very excited. The first times of pandemic, I pitched you and then I'm waiting to get your feedback. We were on Zoom. And Professor Erhan, you started so much and challenged us so much. So I understand why you got all of those awards that you got. And you challenge us so much, and I was, you know, thank God this was not physical on Zoom. So if you do it, it won't happen. So this won't happen, that won't happen. And I turned off the computer and I, you know, let me confess that I went through very emotional ups and downs. But looking back at those times, I'm so glad that you gave such harsh criticism, because preventive measures, Serdar Abi also mentioned that, they are very critical. And when in the specifics of the special or private development, this is a milestone for me. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank you so much. Probably you did not know of that. If it's okay for you, let me get started with the first question. And we always hear you in the entrepreneurship. So I have a great idea and I need to start up an enterprise. But then you say that the execution is what really matters, not only the ideation. So I graduated from university program and YGA gave me that platform to give it a try and see my ideas. From that perspective, what are the things that you find precious for YGA and the enterprises? Mina, for the prospective entrepreneurs, so we tell that there are 5 milestones: idea, team, or timing, or the readiness of technology, market and financing. These are the 5 principles. idea is the least important one out of these 5, because like 10 times or so your ideas change, and the easiest part is financing, because if you have the remaining 4, finance will follow. When you look at the remaining of these factors, particularly in Turkey, setting up a good team is missing. 3 great engineers, very sharp, bright, they come together. Where do you have the designer? No, we don't have it. The business vice person? No, we don't have it. Well, business development person? No, but we're good friends. Okay, market test? No, but the idea is great. Okay, but have you checked the customers? No, but the idea is great. They have fallen in love with the idea. But we tell them that they need to fall in love with the problem, and the team should complement one another. Sometimes, I believe there are some primitive questions. Is it nature or nurture in terms of entrepreneurship? You can nurture everything, but there are some helpful things, some skills, some competencies which might help you, which are always open for improvement and development. When I look at these, I actually see that YGA is a great entrepreneurship field, because you are sent to the field where you work. Therefore, the opportunities could be watched and monitored and observed in the field. You have direct contact with the market, and you work as a team. You have the objective of co-achieving, and these 2 things are what we miss in Turkey the most. And you take an initiative. You are developing your own project at YGA, and this is the entrepreneurship. You are managing crisis, you are pursuing finances. This is all entrepreneurship. YGA, even though it doesn't position itself as an entrepreneurship school, which is the right way, I see YGA as a leadership academy. So to become a successful entrepreneur, the skills are probably developing the fastest in this environment. So if you would like to do it tomorrow, don't come to YGA. So unless you complete 1,000, 2,000 hours, you can't become an entrepreneur. You're not aware of that. And if you don't have awareness, nothing much could contribute to you by YGA. If you are ready, come to YGA, do your volunteer work, your internship, collect team members, collect ideas, make them come together, and your odds of success are increased. So if you would like to become an entrepreneur one night, simply overnight, go to an incubation center or go for a contest. So we don't have a notion such as immediate or overnight success. This is what we hear at YGA. You need to deserve that. Well, you said that your success ratios are also increased. And we have the opportunity to witness our role models and masters in this field. And we believe we learn so fast in that respect. I'm going to talk about the curiosity survey shown by Serdar abi. This is one of the questions. In times of despair, who are your role models who are giving you energy and motivation? And only 1% said my professors, which is very low. But also, Richard Francis is a very significant professor, academic for you. How did he influence you? Can you talk about that? I think it's a very interesting point. Unfortunately, in Turkey, when we say leader, we don't think of our uncle or brother or our teacher or our professors. It's either a political leader or a military leader. My brother Serdar talked about political leaders, and I'm still thinking of whom he was talking about. So, a political person with leadership capabilities. Can you talk about that? Tell me that later, Serdar. Yeah, of course, we need to go back. We have to take it from 1881. Now that's okay, Serdar. Well, I'm also teaching leadership. And the 4 top qualities which should be in a leader, and the existing politicians in Turkey are lacking them all. I do apologize, but we are going through very bad leadership times. My leaders have been always my teachers. Nevi Türkalsan, my primary school teacher, may Allah rest her soul in peace. She gave me responsibility to collect money from the classmates, we would do charity work. So now it's called social responsibility project in secondary school, in high school. Well, I would choose teachers, teachers would choose me. Likewise in the university. I was a fortunate person. I went to very good schools. But in my PhD, the game completely changed. So, a PhD student without so much awareness, probably the history has never seen that. I went to University of Florida, like, you know, we graduated from YGA, you know. I'm the cool guy. No one cares where you graduated from. Everyone graduated somewhere. I'm Erhan Arkut. I'm from Turkey. And I would like to finish my PhD in 2 years and leave. Everyone laughed at me. And I was like, well, you know, why? Probably, you know, I missed something. Why are they laughing? Probably not me. Then classes started. And again, in the same introduction meeting, I'm Erhan Arkut. I come from Turkey. This is now next year. I would like to finish PhD in 3 years. They're laughing at me again. You know, there is an update, guys. You know, wake up. It's 3 years now. So, you know, we would take classes, take exams, make a project at YGA, and I thought that would be the same, you know, but it turned out to be not that way. So, because I learned so many things great at YGA University, I put up a show, you know, wow, you know, they would give me A because I was writing down things which I knew very well. So, come with a project proposal, they told me. And now, in terms of promising, I'm great. I'm going to do this or that. Promises, promises. And then they told me that, you know what, you could finish it in 2 years. And then I asked myself, I don't want to do that. They would pay me $1,000 for the assistantship. And then there was a coup d'etat in Turkey. There is higher superior council of education. You know, beard and mustache is forbidden. And I don't want to finish my PhD. That's what I decided. There were Olympic Games in summer. I watched them and I was organizing football tournaments. My parents came over to me. And whenever my professor, supervisor told me that, well, this is good, I was like, you know, I was stopping. No, I'm not ready to graduate. And then he told me to write it down. And you start with the second chapter. The first chapter is written the last. So it's indeed talking about, like narrating again. If this happens, that would happen. And he asked me, my supervisor, who is going to do that. And I told him that, well, do I need to do that? Well, but you're an engineer, you know, this is a theory. So for more than 4 pages. You know what? I've never seen so many red marks and corrections in 1 page all my life. And I went home. I was cursing about my supervisor. You know, I was telling this to my wife. He doesn't get me, so on and so forth. And then I learned how to prove theories. I started to learn more about coding, how to make research, how to develop hypotheses. So without masters, don't be a PhD student. And this was my huge mistake. You know, I said that a primitive idea, I have one great idea. If I simply jump to PhD without masters, I will keep that. He didn't beat me, but with love. My supervisor guided me and he did not probably trust in my coding. He started to write codes. Can you imagine? PhD supervisor writing codes with you, then you compare the results. He was showing me one thing on paper. Well, you know, I was suspicious. He already knew the answer, but trying to nudge me towards trying to come up with a solution. Again, it was a huge example of ignorance. The second chapter was over, and then I was in mid-third chapter, and I was offered a job in Canada, and I went there. And then third chapter was done. I wrote the fourth chapter. The fifth chapter was written. After 1 year, I came back, and I was going to defend my thesis. There was this thesis defense. It was 3rd of July. 4th of July, everyone was celebrating me. And I passed my Viva. And 4th of July, it's a bank holiday. And I went to the forest. And I started crying, shouting and crying within the forest. Because this is a huge climax. Because it's a survival, a matter of life or death. Well, after working for 6 months, Well, PhD defense is something else. It's another survival. You pass, there's a huge relief, and you have immediate flashbacks. So, well, actually, I had a deep respect for my supervisor, not the insights, not the knowledge, but he was very friendly, guiding me. He was so understanding. If it were me, back then, and if I were my own professor, I would completely kick me out. You know what? You're not here to make a PhD. You are organizing bridge or football tournaments. You established a Turkish Alumni Society of Football. You know, we're going to teach the guys to play football. So it was an extraordinary respect and then a huge appreciation. He supported me. He gave me a profession. And I went to Canada in a great school, in one of the top 100 schools. I was teaching there. But there was one thing which I couldn't put my finger on, a huge anger inside me. And then I tried to do some introspection. Why am I angry? Angry at my supervisor because he deconstructed me and constructed me again, and he didn't beat me. A diploma that I did not think I deserved, and I got it. And I was angry at him because, you know, it was sort of in a deep contradiction with appreciation. And I was angry at him. And I was in shouts, and I was shouting, and I was crying. And, you know, this person taught me to set up an experiment in the form of experimental design, prove theories, come up with an algorithm to the problem, solve it, submit it to the journal. But then again, thinking of this, this is not the reason why I have such a deep respect for this guy. This guy did not quit on me. He believed in me. Whatever he saw in me, he probably saw a potential. And he supported me until the very end. And he made me reach my potential or even go beyond that. And now, if I have an unbelievable respect and appreciation and feel that I'm indebted to him, this is what I need to do. And, you know, I did what I needed to do. We wrote so many articles. We became an associate professor. No, this was not what he gave me. What he essentially gave me, the notion that we need to believe every individual, that everyone has a potential. And this is our job, to untap that potential, support people to go beyond their own existing potentials. And that gift shall be gifted to anyone. That was the only way I could be worthy of my professor. And this is what I have been trying to do all my life. And unfortunately, last year he passed away in COVID. And I went to his funeral. He was buried in Florida. And it was indeed a very, very emotional time for me. And Richard Francis is alive, in my opinion, in his PhD students and the people those PhD students touch. And I wish we had so many more people who could act as role models for their students. Our teachers, professors are those who are molding, shaping our futures, not the soldiers or the other politicians. Thank you so much. May God rest his soul in peace. Thank you. So this awoke so many things in my mind. We're talking about challenge, support, balance in YGA. Well, you were challenged, but it was in a very friendly fashion. And I think that is the key word. It could have been harsher or stricter, and maybe that would drive you away. Do you agree with me? Exactly. I wish he would beat me more.
Normally, I'm a bad-tempered person. If he tried to beat me, I would probably fall out with him. Emotional things will get out of control. Actually, I would say this guy didn't understand me, but who was I? You understand who you are when you finish your PhD. You realize that the more things you learn, the less things you know. Also, in tapping this potential, it's interesting. Well, that's the story, Mina. people think that they have a certain potential. In one of my previous universities, students said, don't treat us like Boğaziçi University pupils. I said, where does it come from? Is there such a classification? He says, there's this student who is the 500 one. I'm 150,000 student. I said, that's just a result. Do you know who you are indeed? Do you know how much you can achieve? So for me, what matters is not just tapping the potential of someone. A course can do that too. You need to be by people's side as they define their potential. You need to enable them to be surprised by their own potential. You need to enable them to say, wow. The most important moments for me were the moments where I surprised myself. You cannot compare it with any medal, with any stage success. I want people to feel those moments. That's why I support them. And everyone actually feels they're here, they think they can go there, but no one knows how much they can do. Creating limits is one of the worst things you can do. This education system puts you in a caste. You says, I couldn't get to a science school, then this is my capacity. I couldn't get to that school, then I have that capacity. That's not the case. These exams are disputable. Even they are not disputable, they are worthless. Because they are standardizing human beings. They don't have any other goal. It doesn't measure our emotional intelligence. It doesn't measure perseverance. It doesn't measure teamwork. They just measure how many problems you can solve in a short period of time. I understand that you get a gift from your trainer and you give it to YGA in your own platform, and I also had a gift from YGA, and I see such a beautiful examples of tapping the potentials of women. Well, those people who say they cannot do coding can do coding now. It's such a great feeling, right? Definitely. My last question. You are working on a book called AI in Education, and we are very excited. I have a copy here, thinking that you might ask about it. As educational entrepreneurs, we are very curious. So can you share anything? So you want me to give you a teaser? Yes. The book system is desperate. You have the solution. The educational system has collapsed because it was designed to create workforce for the factory system 2 centuries ago. It cannot meet any needs. It has collapsed altogether. The youth are desperate. They need to take care of their troubles, and they are learning about how to do that through organizations like YGA. I'm trying to explain that in the book, and I also provide a summary of the current university situation. There is no meritocracy. 68 rectors do not have any, for example, journal success. Assignments take place through loyalty. The universities are in shatters. There are no freedoms. Actually, we have 6.4 out of 100, and out of 175 countries, we rank 117th in terms of freedom. And when you look at the finances, we are talking about $7 billion spent by over 100 universities. Michigan University's actually budget is $10 billion. So this is like less than, a little bigger than half. Our professors can have publications with a value of 0.3 in international journals. We see a satisfaction level of D or F, if you think of it like a survey. 68 universities do not have any research. They don't have any patents. They don't do research. They don't do commercialization, and students aren't happy with them. Actually, crash courses are sold like universities to students, so we say you shouldn't have any hope of universities. We see 123, my apologies, says the speaker, 123 universities do not have any international guest professor, and 103 of them do not send any professors outside too. So we are just doing it, everything by ourselves. There is no autonomy, there is no meritocracy. Well, I supported the youth during the Gezi protests, and I resigned from rectorship position. Then I became a dean. There was this coup attempt. All the deans were asked to resign, and my assignment was not accepted. But I'm not a FETÖ person. Why don't you imprison me if I'm a FETÖ person? No one gave an answer to that. There is no autonomy. You cannot assign or nominate any dean. You cannot determine your budget. You cannot spend actually anything as you wish. No one is happy with that. The business community is not happy with that. Students are not happy with that. Families are not happy with that. Who are happy? Maybe the professors who got in with loyalty. So what will happen? Everyone will take care of themselves. And that's the case across the globe. There are 10 important factors that trigger education: higher costs, inequalities, demographic earthquakes. You're going to see all of them in the book. And there are 10 dimensions of education. AI is only one of them. You asked about it, so I'd like to say a few words and close. AI actually is a concept addressed even in the time of Aristotle, but it becomes part of the literature in the 1960s, but it faces a huge disappointment because the computers aren't fast enough. In fact, they are not existing back then. Now we are talking about 2020. All have common place and everyone is discussing the AI. AI will grow, the AI industry will grow by 40% in its aggressive sense. And it's going to reach a value of $2.6 trillion by 2050. So I'd like to talk about individualized and customized education now. Think about the alternative. There's this professor, 40 students are across them. Some of them learn slowly, some of them learn normally, some of them learn fast. They say just surf the wave, teach according to the medium part. So this part will be bored, that part will be will not be able to understand that. You have this curriculum, you say Alparslan entered Turkey in 1071, but I do not want to learn history like that. I want to learn it in a horizontal way. When the Ottomans were established in 1299, there were things in other places. What did Serdar said? She said he's referred to campaign rather than victory. Merzifon Mustafa Pasha also came from Vienna siege and he lost his head. Baltaji, sorry, I got confused, which happened in 1700s. So we are talking about 1683. There is this Kara Mustafa Pasha from Merzifon, and he goes there and cannot achieve the siege. It lays in Vienna. Maybe I learned things with a band of mehter music. I want to put on some actually glasses and watch them. Or there are those trench people who try to create ditches or tunnels. I should be able to see them, or I should check how surgeries without any narcosis take place in the hospitals for the Janissaries, or why did Krim and Eflak dynasties fought together with us. If I'm curious about this strategy, then I should be able to see the meetings of the generals. But that's all possible in the AI. And here you need to just create content, Unity, Unreal, and you need thousands of them, thousands of 3D software people. So the AI gives you certain benefits, but it also collects data. If you know about the, if you want to know about the angle of for example, some shells, they will say, this guy wants to be an engineer. When they collect thousands of pieces from you, they will create a report for you. Or you may want to learn about the integral or you may want to learn about the derivatives. You might say, for example, I want something symbolic. Then they will say, this guy will be a mathematician. If you want to learn something else, they will say, this is going to be an engineer. Think of an average Turkish teacher. They don't speak English. They are not technologically savvy. They are also civil servant score is average. They are not happy with their salary. They don't have any capacity to update themselves. They cannot attend international conferences. I mean, that's a person who has a fight with their spouse at home. They have this concern about making a living. And they are describing things according to average students, explaining things according to average students. Whom would you like to get as a source of information? This teacher or the AI who provided courses to 1 billion students, 1 million students? Your grandchildren will actually question it in the future. We are talking about content transfer. That's not something that can be communicated by a human being to another human being. Last year, AYT average was 40. This year, it is 29. But the threshold is the same. You just need to be a human being to deprive 250,000 students from their right to choice. A computer cannot make such a fatal error. They can just make a blue screen. So the quicker we get rid of humankind in the educational system, the happier we are going to be. The book will be published in January. How many units do you want for YGA? Let me communicate it with you. The AI chapter is 8 pages though. I will send it to everyone. We narrated it with stories. Some people want to learn with music. Some people want to learn with music like this. We look forward to meeting in 12 years. I was here in 2009. I will come back in 12 years' time, Mina. Thank you very much. This has been a conversation beyond my dream with Professor Erhan. We moved from topic to topic, but all was illuminating. Now I'll pass the floor to Ayça again. Thank you again. Dear Mina, Professor Erhan, thank you for this enjoyable conversation. Actually, Mina and Professor Erhan's challenge support story tells the importance of how actually this process is important for YGA volunteers. Now I will ask our participants to touch their cards, tags. Do you feel something awkward here? Well, there are actually small roughnesses. We used seeds rather than plastic cards. After the summit, you can just plant these cards to soil and you will see them blossoming. We are going to check the litter boxes. Just keep it in mind. We have a great atmosphere in the hall, but we are not alone. In digital HBR and TikTok platforms, we have thousands of young individuals. We are very happy to share this atmosphere with them as well. Now, I'm an extra excited person because when I was a high school student, I would listen to this person's speech, Twin Science and Robotics. Çağlar İşçioğlu used to work for Microsoft when I was a student, and he took a break from that successful career and had a world travel for 1 year in his quest for meaning. Then he found what he was looking for somewhere close in YGA, and he joined different YGA projects and initiatives since then, and he takes different responsibilities. Now I'm inviting Çağlar İşçioğlu to the floor. It's great to see you here. I'm honored. Thank you. It was back in 2008 when Sinan abi showed a photo asking, do you know who this person is? No one raised a hand. I didn't know him either. And I was curious why Sinan abi showed this person. And he said within a decade everyone will know about him. He will be the first Nobel Prize winner from Turkey. Aziz Sancar brought that prize to Turkey in 2015. Now, it was back in 2018. Mete and Göktuğ were our guests. Mete did not win the Olympics yet, but we announced him as an Olympic winner. How could we predict these accomplishments then? Mete Gazoz or Aziz Sancar, who achieved the first, had common characteristics. What are they? First, they have big dreams. That is a sine qua non. Second, they created their roadmaps for those dreams. I mean, filling in with content. Third, they were surrounded by the right people. And last but not least, they had this internal discipline where they persevered for the same dream for years. Today, we are in 2021's YGA Summit. We see a bigger team, and we are here with Yasemin, Göktuğ, and Mete. We are going to listen to very intimate, sincere stories. I'd like to invite Professors Mete, Yasemin, and Göktuğ to the stage without further ado. Welcome, Yasemin. Hi, Mete. Hi. Welcome again. Thank you. I think you benefited from 2021 pandemic period because we have an Olympic championship and the third place in the world competition. So it was like incubation for the pandemic, an incubation period in the pandemic. Thank you very much. Whenever I speak with people like you, I realize that, of course, you are individuals with great accomplishments, but it's like also we are at the outset of bigger adventures, bigger journeys. That's something exciting for me. We can start with Yasemin. We said that surrounding with the right people is important. And you are live examples of it. And we are used to tense sports people in Turkey, etc. Aggressive, like coaches. You can just imagine them. I know you. You are always cheerful. Mete also smiles, even just to make the rival tick. We have a very sincere relationship with Göktuğ. So what is actually the secret to that? Well, I think the trust inside and outside the field is the most important factor. Let me share you with an anecdote from 2015. We were in the World Championship in Shanghai, and when we sent throw, we would look at the flags. We would have instructions like pick this side. I asked Göktuğ, where are we going to look? Göktuğ said you need to look left. I mean, if I marked for left, I may not even hit the target. There's this 10-meter distance, by the way, with each other. He said, are you sure? Are we going to check left? Yes. And when I looked at the result, all the arrows were there. And we didn't see any Olympics. We weren't professional back then. So Göktuğ abi always gives this comfort. I take the responsibility. Be it positive or negative at the end, do whatever I say. If there is a negative outcome, I will have the responsibility and you will never feel the blame. And that has been the case. He was never angry with us, and he didn't let anyone get angry with us. That gives great confidence to me and Mete alike. As for trust outside the pitch, before going to Rio, we were 15, 16 years old, and Göktuğ abi said, these guys are going to race in the Olympics. So he sort of faced with everyone. There were no Olympians in Arab branch, so he was treated like he was dealing with kids, and he defended us, and we were the youngest archery competitions in Olympics at the age of 17. He said, they treat you as children, but you are so strong that you can carry the responsibility of an entire country. People criticizing you like this will watch you in Rio. And that has been the case.
Buradan da ben Mete'ye dönmek istiyorum.
Mete, I would like to now give the floor to you. How are you doing, Mete? Thank you so much. How are you doing? Thank you so much. Well, you have to dream big to be a winner. In 2016, with courage, you said that, well, I'm going to win the Olympics. Again, in 2018 summit, we repeated that. And now you bear that title. So what did you learn and discover about yourself in those 5 years? In every tournament, every time, it was a learning experience. Well, actually, not the times that you win, but when you lose, both about your daily life or daily routine. I started to learn some things. And Göktem, this is what he would tell us at all times. We were never obsessed with simply winning. Apart from 2021, well, I wish you had done that. Well, you know, we made a mistake. So at all times, it was not the outcome of the tournament. Whether this is successful or not, the performance that we would deliver in the rehearsal, what we are doing, and what we are showing when we are on the tournament, in the tournament. So while we're able to show the points which could make us world champions, and in another setting, if we have irrelevant scores, we have to sit down and you know, you can't have a reasonable discussion. And when Rio was over, when we discussed it with Gökten abi, brother Gökten, what he would what he would tell me, and you know, starting from 2018 and starting from there, exponentially making a contribution to this, and both inside and outside the field. This is what I shared on Twitter, and then it really happened to be that way, and I'm so glad that you did that. Well, there is a process in your speech. You always focus on the process, and data is very important in that respect, and I know that you care about that so much. I'm going to ask you further about that. Well, you said that there is a process, but you need to have a roadmap, and that database, scientific, a very important and very successful training model is over there, and all those successes came following that. Well, actually, normally, culturally and socially, we tend to put the pressure on the young people, you know, be modest, don't be too sharp, don't be a know-it-all. But since 2013, as we are working with the young people, this is our philosophy, and I'm a former athlete, and as a person who was pressurized in that respect, a good athlete, first of all, needs to be egoist. So perhaps you need to be slightly know-it-all so that you can set realistic expectations and targets for yourself, so that they have an awareness regarding themselves. And this is what we have always tried to do, to boost the self-confidence and egos of our athletes, to become slightly know-it-all. But in 2016, I was rather flabbergasted when I saw his statement in 2016. I was rather, anxious because it was a huge promise. And Mete put that target as an Olympic medal as a target, and in 28th week of 2021, which was obvious in 2016, and in a tournament, we needed to come up with a roadmap to simply increase the performance up to the peaks part. And since 2013, since day one, every step they take, every progress they make, every level or their ratio of their pulse, we are accumulating every piece of data in a data bank. So first of all, we would like to create a small basin or data bank for all of the young athletes. But then again, in time, we learned how to process that data. Let me give you very small examples. Only in 2021, we had a rehearsal plan of 40 weeks, 303 days, Mete and Yasemin, 3 arcs, aerobes, and then remaining 42 days were spent in the international contests, not the national ones. And among those 42 days, 3,712 moves made by Mete, and the 12th one is actually the arrow when the TRT narrator said Mete is now hitting the target and he's becoming a champion. And he ran for 319 minutes and 3,700 kilometers in total. When you simply go back and have a retrospective of 8 years, we have the formula, a winner formula of an Olympic gold medal. And what we need to do is to motivate the up and coming young athletes in this respect. But in business community, in culture and arts, some achievements are not always tangible, or they're too precious to put a price on those. But when you look at the body or physical exercise, what is the effort that you have to put? This could be formalized. And of course, not having the data is important, but you need to process it in the right fashion. Leonardo da Vinci wrote in his diary, and I always remember that without using the science and simply training is like navigating a ship without a steering wheel. Well, the ship will go anyway on the sea, but you have to be in charge to navigate it in the uncharted waters. So as this is one of your titles, prediction, and as I have said, in 28th week in 2021, it was important for us to foresee where he would stand. If we could do that, we could have won the realistic targets. We could give it a try. After 2016, we did a training method, and we simply put it into a test, and he won the Mediterranean Games. And we twisted it in 2017, and then he won the world medal. And in 2019, we put on top of that, and again, he comfortably won, even more comfortably with this very performance. He won the world championship. And I think we were a great team. And again, in the 28th week of 2021, he became an Olympic gold winner. We have the formula, and the rest is up to the motivation of the up-and-coming young athletes so that they are ready to put the efforts. I think you are balancing it greatly. On one hand, you have a wild discipline of this crazy training method and training program, and on the other hand, you have given them a space of freedom because you know them very well and they know you very well. How can you do that? We work with a very crowded team, and we have so many eyes observing Yasemin, Mete, when they get bored, what they need each and every day. We try to foresee and assume and plan it accordingly beforehand. Well, of course, these are long times when you go to the camp. They are disconnected from their peers and their families, and it's not very easy to manage that, particularly at this age. But if you could guide them in the right fashion, and if you are aware of the fact that what you do pays off, then you could motivate them. But of course, as we heard from you, there are different responsibilities. Simply, they have lives, schools, they have their peers, their parents. We have responsibilities regarding their academic lives or their social lives or their individual lives, and we try to do our best to bridge the gaps. We always try to end the internal meetings with topics which could contribute to their well-being, social, academic, or cultural well-being. So, for example, we are prohibiting the use of Turkish for a given time in order to encourage everyone to speak English, and it could be rather harsh. Or sometimes we are not talking about archery, even though we are throwing arrows. For 1 or 2 weeks we don't talk about that, and that means that we have to talk about something else for 1 week, for 2 weeks. Mete and Yasemin are very creative in that respect. Can I speak? Sometimes when we are in a training, you know, we are forbidden to talk about a particular topic or to speak at all. And when I'm done, I run to Gökten abi, and he is actually giving me space. I was in a camp in India. It was a silent retreat for 10 days. Oh my God. This is my question, actually, which I would like to ask you. The support system. So you have to have any discipline and you have to train yourself very well. And archery, there seems to be a very individual sport, but of course you should not be deceived by the looks. Your parents, your coaches, it's a collective success story. This is what I wonder, Yasemin and Mete. First, I would like to ask you, how are you supported by your trainer, Gökte Hoca? And also, as Mete and Yasemin, how are you supporting one another, particularly when you're in challenging times? So, me and Mete, we are completely different, simply incompliant characters, but because of that we have a harmony. We have a training of not speaking. Mete can't simply sit down, and I'm completely happy with that. It's okay, because my mind is speaking at all times. I could do it the whole training time, but when we're in the field, completing one another's shortcomings like a puzzle, whatever piece we are missing, they are settling it down. When we are in the field, the spectators would know that one person is throwing an arrow, the other person standing down. This is our biggest weapon. Well, this was one of the discoveries of Gökte Hoca. Well, the brain does not have, it is impossible to shut the brain down. That's why we give directives to one another. If I'm working on the techniques, so I have to pull this. Well, as a movement you pull it, but unless you order your brain, you can't merely do it with your arm. It's impossible to do it because you don't see it. If I'm standing back, Mete gives me that directions. Simply continue pulling with the right, and the brain does not have a filter. They need to do what it is required to do. Or sometimes I give directions to Mete, and we are always speaking to one another. And while we're throwing arrows, this this is what we do. When we are on that map, it seems to be a single person, but actually it's the combination of us both. We are throwing arrows. I think this is our unique selling proposition. We were fourth in the Olympic Games. Well, we were devastated, but next month in the Global Championship, personally after that, I was through ups and downs. And Mete became a champion, and it really motivated me because I was very happy on his behalf, and he was lifting my mood. And when we were third winners in the United States, so we won the first mixed team gold medal for our country. So these are lifting our spirits up. And this game, in this game, we come fourth. Another one, we could be the third one. Compared to the other teams, for example, they lose in the first tour and they show up a different performance. But we always have an average, which is foreseeable. And in the trainings, well, it's so complicated, put forward by Göktuğ abi. So we go through every type of possible scenario, wind, rain, or he's shouting, because anytime we could hear something and we should not be distracted by that. So it's like crazy, you know, he's coding and scaring us. When we were in USA, it was tornado. This was the first time I've ever seen that, because, you know, it doesn't happen so much in Turkey. The flights were cancelled, everything was cancelled. If the target does not fall down, you have to continue, and as they are tied and attached, you have to continue. You know, it's very difficult. So this is how we continued, and in 2015 we became the second winner in United States, Yankton, and there we became world's third. So these are the first medals in the history of Turkey. So they're very valuable. And I think as this team, we are creating a domino effect. We have a huge team. Well, I wish everyone would know our names one day, one by one. And as you said, this is going to be the start of greater things to come. Yes. Mete, what would you say? So we are so contrasting characters. You are going to understand that. So she's talking about the tornado in 2015. So this is what she remembers. And this is what I remember from those days. Well, the last day we took the flight to Chicago, from Chicago to Istanbul and to Azerbaijan. We had to leave to these places, and you know, they need to be following one another. And it was the first flight and the first leg, and we couldn't do that. You know, we failed in the first step. And Göktuğ abi, because as Yasemin mentioned, you know, there was a huge tornado, and I was 15 or 16 years old. You know, we're playing games, because, you know, we don't care about the flight. Göktuğ abi was trying to run from here to there, and he rented a jet to make it happen. Are we going to fly with the chartered flight? Come on. Okay, either we had to rent that jet, or you were going to read it on Milliyet, because there is European Games, and the team got stuck in United States. We can't represent, and you know, because of the accreditation deadline, we could not send anyone. We had to bring you and Mete to Baku, and we arrived in the morning, and it was 7:30. Everything had already started. Yeah, so first time ever on the jet. And I'm trying to push this button, do that, and Göktuğ abi was like, Mete, don't do that. Well, this is why we brought you over here. And then we arrived in Chicago, and we were sort of midway. And from where we landed, there was a message to the walkie-talkie of the pilot. What is it? In the apron. So there was this black bag, a luggage. And then, is this yours? They asked me. Göktuğ abi told me, Mete, this is yours. And I was eating chips, and I was like, not. And we landed, and you know what? Of course, I was missing my luggage. And There was a chaos. How are you missing your luggage? Because the national team stuff is there. But I'm a ridiculous person, so it turned out to be that I was carrying my jersey, national jersey, on my backpack. But, you know, it has nothing to do, so it is actually what I had to wear. So, the harmony, this is how we have the harmony among three of us. So, I don't care about anything else.
She tries to be alone, and Göktuğ tries to make us focus on the competition. For example, they were telling about their memories soon, and they cannot say anything. So I say, we're just speaking, and I mean, no, there is no wind here, I will check here, etc., etc. She just makes this movement, gesture, and then we understand each other. Our biggest advantage compared to other teams in the field, on the pitch, is that we have this different level of trust and harmony with each other. Also, that trust and harmony among three of us is at a very different level. When we go outside, we know that all three of us will have that excitement, that representation feeling nowhere else. We don't have that chance again. We have done our best. We have made great sacrifices. We have worked out a lot. So nothing will just magically touch us and change all the things. That's why we make the most of it. That's why we enjoy it to the fullest, as we trust each other. And we do it willingly, with all our heart. That's why I didn't feel like that in those hours, as Göktuğ, brother Göktuğ explained. 8 hours, 10 hours actually are very long in the Olympics, but you don't feel it during the occasion. I think that's why we have this element. That's why we have this chemistry with each other. You are wonderful. Also, Coach Göktuğ, this is not a unilateral relationship, right? Sometimes you have your lows, and Yasemin and Mete support you too. Definitely, I learned many things from them, because I have reached now a different age level. I have different interests. They always keep me fresh. They update me about what young people experience. And this is, of course, a long and challenging process for all of us. When I have low morale or motivation, they realize it very quickly, and I like spending time with them so much that we forget about our troubles. And of course, their statements after the competitions make me very happy. I understand how well they learned the things in our training sessions. That motivates me to start the next training day with great enthusiasm. At the beginning, I was sort of manipulating their speeches when they were speaking to the outside press, but now both of them speak English, and I read their statements, and I realized that they really developed themselves, they really improved themselves, and that influences me positively. We are a close family, we are a warm family. Maybe we don't have any blood-based kinship, but we spend so much time than those who have kinship, and we overcome things together. So their level of achievement, their progress helps me, enables me to have great pride. Sometimes they say that connection coming with actually sincerity is bigger than the connection coming with blood. It has been a great conversation. People actually grow together, and you are a live example of it, an example of it in flesh. And hopefully, I feel like we are at the beginning of more accomplishments, bigger journeys, and we are very happy to host you. It's great to have you here. Thank you for coming. No, thank you. Mete kept his promise in 2018 YGA Summit. Thank you very much, Mete, Göktuğ, and Yasemin, for letting us experience those great things. I see 4 things there: being oneself, looking at the future with hope, having discipline, and also having great success.
Ne mutlu. Temelleri o kadar sağlam ki bu başarının sürdürülebilir olacağına eminiz. Eminim sıradaki yarışlarda Yasemin'in dediği gibi takım olarak da en güzel başarı.
Emre Oluk and Burak Yıldırım will now be on the stage.
10 dakikalık çok keyifli bir pilates. Şimdi kısa bir aramız olacak. Saat 11:20'de tekrar salonda burada buluşacağız. İyi gelecek. Pilates seansımızın ardından kısa bir ara vereceğiz. Bu sırada Discord'da soru ve yorumlarınızı iletmeyi, TikTok'ta da iyiye bak hareketine katılmayı unutmayın.
Ağırlığınız göbek deliğinizin önünde. Ayak parmaklarınızı kaldırmaya devam edin ve bacağınızı olabildiğince aktif tutun. Ve tekrar ayak parmaklarımızı indirdik ve normal olması gereken, hatta olmaması gereken yere döndük. Ağırlığımızı öne aldık. Ayak parmaklarımızı yerden kaldırıyoruz. Bacaklarımızı aktif hale getiriyoruz. Göbek deliğimizi içeriye ve yukarıya doğru çekmeye çalışıyoruz. Bunu yaparken omuzlarımız da kulaklarımızdan uzaklaşmaya çalışıyor. Ağırlığımız hala önde ve parmaklarımız yukarıya kalkmaya devam ediyor. Ve ayak parmaklarımızı koyduk ve ağırlığımızı eski yerine aldık. Son kez rica edeceğim. Ağırlığımızı öne aldık. Bacaklarımız aktifken ayak parmaklarımızı kaldırabildiğimiz en üst noktaya kaldırıyoruz. Göbek deliğimizi içeriye, yukarıya ve öne doğru çekmeye devam ediyoruz. Ve göğsümüzü derse açmaya çalışıyoruz. Ve yeterli. Hareketin adı roll down. Hayali duvara omurgamızı yerleştirdiğinizi düşünün. Ağırlığınız hala birazcık önde olabilir. Başımızı duvardan soyarak başlıyoruz. Başımız, üst sırtımız, orta sırtımız ve belimiz. Kalçanızı geriye götürmemeye çalışın bu aşamada. Topuklarınızın üstünde mümkün olduğu kadar kalsın. Dizlerinizi kırabiliriz. Karnınızı bacağınızdan uzaklaştırarak başlayın. Kuyruk sokumunuz kıvrılsın aşağıya doğru. Beliniz, orta parçanız, sırtınız, omuzlarınız ve başınız karşıya baksın. Nefesle yapacağız. Nefes aldık. Parçanız, beliniz ve yere kadar gidiyoruz artık. Dizlerinizi kırın ve bırakın beliniz ve omurganız açılsın. Alt karnınızı bacağınızdan uzaklaştırabildiğiniz kadar uzaklaştırın. Sırtınıza doğru, kaburgalarınızı da sırtınıza doğru çekmeye çalışın. Karnınızı ve sırtınızı, kaburgalarınızı sırtınıza doğru çekmeye devam edin. Son kez rica edeceğim. Nefes aldık. Nefes verirken nefes süresince gidiyoruz. Sonuna kadar nefesi vermeye çalışın. Nefes alırken karnınızı şişirmemeye çalışın ve yavaşça kalkıyoruz. Kuyruk sokumunuz kıvrılsın, alt karnınızı çekmeye devam edin. Beliniz, sırtınız, en son başınız geliyor. Teşekkürler. Bir önceki harekete upper back extension ekleyeceğiz. Başımız yeniden duvardan ayrılıyor. Hayali duvardan sırtımız ayrılıyor. Ve öne doğru roll down yapıyoruz. Ayaklarınızın paralel olduğundan ve birazcık açık olduğundan emin olun. İsteyenler ayaklarını biraz daha açabilir. Kendini çok stiff hissedenler, çok o gün kapalı hissediyorsanız bedeninizi biraz açabilirsiniz. Bu belinizin açılmasına yardımcı olacaktır. Ve kalkıyoruz. Kollarınızı bu sefer tavana kaldırıyorsunuz. Ellerinizin arasını birazcık açın. Omuzlarınızdan daha çok açık olsun elleriniz. Ve sadece kolyenizi hayal edin. Kolyenizi tavana doğru kaldırdığınızı düşünün. Gönlünüzü tavana doğru açın. Ve kollar geliyor. Başınız karşıya, aşağıya doğru kollarla birlikte dalacağız. Kalçanızın geriye gitmemesine özen gösterin. Dizlerinizi kırın bu aşamada. Karnınızı bacaklarınızdan uzaklaştırmaya çalışın. Ve yukarıya doğru kalkıyoruz. Kuyruk sokumunuz, beliniz, orta parçanız, sırtınız ve kollarınız tavana doğru gidiyor. Ellerinizin arasını biraz daha açarak göğsünüzü yukarıya doğru kaldırın ve gözlerinizde de tavana doğru bakmaya çalışın. Ve tekrar dalıyoruz. Dizlerinizi kırdınız. Alt karnınız bacaklarınızdan uzaklaştı. Kuyruk sokumunuzu kıvırarak ve alt karnınızı derinleştirerek kalkıyorsunuz. Arka bacak kaslarınızı aktif hale getirerek. Ağırlığınız hala önde. Kollarınızı açtınız ve bakışlarınız odanızın köşesine doğru olabilir. Tavana doğru bakamıyorsanız, boynunuz zorlanıyorsa odanızın köşesine doğru bakabilirsiniz. Ve bedeninizin ön tarafını kaldırmaya devam edin. Bedeninizin önünü uzatın. Bedeninizin ön kısmını uzatmaya devam edin ve kollarınız tekrar iniyor. Teşekkür ederim. Egzersizimizin adı side stretch, side to side, side bend. Sağ elimizi yukarıya doğru uzatıyoruz. Kolumuzla, elimizle, sağ yanımızla, bacağımızla uzayabildiğimiz en üst noktaya uzamaya çalışalım. Sağ kaburgalarınızın arası açılmak istiyor ve nefesinizi buraya yollayın. 3 büyük nefes alacağız. Sağ kaburgalarınız genişlesin. Ve verin nefes. 2 nefes daha. Uzayın. Ve verin nefes. Son nefes, uzayın yukarıya ve tavana değmeye çalışın. Sağ yanınızı uzatın, uzatın, uzatın. Kaburgalarınızın arası açılsın ve iniyoruz öbür kol. Sol kolu yukarıya kaldırdık. Uzadığımız en üst noktayı bulun. Sol bacağınızı yere kuvvetlice itin ve sol yanınızın uzadığını hayal edin. Değmeye çalışın tavana ya da gökyüzüne. Sol kaburgalarınızla nefes almaya çalışın ve sol kaburgalarınızın arasını açın. Son nefes lütfen. Aldık nefesimizi, uzamaya devam edin. Ve inerken nefes verin. Şimdi bükülme egzersizi yapacağız. Sağ kolumuzu kaldırdık. Daha demin ulaştığınız en üst noktaya ulaşın ve sola doğru gidiyoruz. Ama sol tarafınızı küçültmeden gitmeye çalışın. Uzayabildiğiniz kadar uzamaya devam edin. Kolunuz kaşınızın köşesine gelebilir. Bazılarınız için geçerli, herkes için geçerli değil. Bu ideal pozisyon değildir. Kimisi için de kulağınızın tam üstü uygun olabilir. Kimisinin değmiyor da olabilir. Ve geldik ve iniyoruz. Ve sol kol. Uzadık yukarıya. Sol tarafınızı uzatabildiğiniz kadar uzattınız ve bükülmeye başladınız. 3 büyük nefes alacağız sol kaburgalarımıza. Nefes aldık ve veriyoruz. Uzama devam ediyor. Bükülme devam ediyor. Ama büküldüğünüz tarafın yanını kısmayın lütfen. Son kez nefes. Ve ortaya dönüyoruz. Ve indik. Son egzersizimizin adı Chest Expansion. Kollarımızı omuz hizasında öne kaldırdık. Sanki havayı basar gibi aşağıya doğru basar gibi kollarımızı iterek kalçalarımızın gerisine doğru götürüyoruz. Götürebildiğiniz kadar geriye. Bunu yaparken omuzlarınızın öne gitmemesine özen gösterin. Ağırlığınız da dersin başında çalıştığımız gibi hep önde kalsın. Kollarınız daha geriye. Evet ve geri omuzlarımızın karşısına ve oradan da tavana doğru kalkarken uzuyoruz yukarıya. Bedeninizin önünü uzatmaya çalışın. En uzak noktadan kolumuz geliyor. En uzak noktadan aşağıya iniyor ve kalçalarınızın gerisine doğru giderken nefes alıyorsunuz ve nefesinizi burada 3 sayı tutuyorsunuz. 1, kol daha geriye, 2 ve 3. Tekrar nefes alırken tavana doğru gidecek kollar. Bu aşamada parmak ucuna kalkabilen kalksın, dengede durmaya çalışın. Ve topukları yere koyduk. Omuzlarımızın hizasından geçiyor. Aşağıdan kalçamızın gerisine doğru gidiyor. Gidebildiği kadar geriye. Hareketi zorlaştırmak isteyen ellerini birbirine yaklaştırmaya çalışsın. Ama kalçalarına değmeden. Ve tekrar yukarıya doğru çıkacak kollarımız. Yukarıya çıkıyoruz. Uzayabildiğimiz kadar uzuyoruz. İsteyen parmaklarına doğru kalkabilir. Dengede durmaya çalışın. Dengenizi bulun ve uzamaya devam edin. Topuklarınızı indirdiniz ve kollar geriye doğru gidiyor. Nefes alın burada ve bana 3 sayı tutun lütfen. 1, 2, 3 ve kol tekrar omuz hizasına kalktı. Ve bitirebiliriz.
Tekrar hoş geldiniz.
Welcome back. This beautiful event is hosted by Zorlu Holding and Zorlu Performance Arts Center. Also our digital host, Harvard Business Review Turkey digital partner TikTok and IKVS, as well as our supporter, the Consulate General of the Netherlands. Would like to thank all these stakeholders. Where is Serdar abi? Serdar abi gave us the great news in the morning, saying that the barriers are low before creating an impact. That was not the case 20 years ago. And having bold dreams in those years was difficult, and we know that there is this individual who resigned from their company and took action to make dreams, Mr. Sinan Yaman, the founder of YGA. That little step taken 20 years ago by Sinan abi is respected and turned into strategic partnerships including MIT, Harvard, and other universities, and 500 actually 1,000 students, and prestigious awards recognized by many companies. At a television program, Sinan abi was asked about how he created that success story in 20 years' time. He said, "We are a 20-year-old young NGO, but our roots date back to 700 years ago." Sinan abi called me a while ago as we were preparing for this event. He asked, wouldn't it be great to share the actually composition of Yunus, a composition for Yunus Emre? And I said, that would be great, but we have just 2 weeks. I couldn't believe that we were able to do that. We would be able to do that, but that piece came into being. Now let's listen to this composition prepared for the commemoration of Yunus Emre in his 700th year.
Suyum alçaktan çekerim.
Now, we're going to listen to the story of this composition as well as YGA. The founder of Sinan Yaman is kindly invited to the floor. We haven't seen any glitch as Erhan played it so far. Well, normally I do it interactively, but I think because we have a closer circle, we will make it more interactively. You can just raise your hand as we can hear all of you. Is there anyone who knows this gentleman in this hall? Anyone? Is there anyone who knows this gentleman? Well, after Çağlar's introduction, maybe he's going to get the Nobel Prize as per my second announcement. I don't know whether he will win the Nobel Prize. He's a scientist. He's called Gaspet. Please start the timer. It says 20:00. Do not warn me about the time. Just play the counter. The reason why I wanted to introduce Gaspet to you is that he has a very impressive saying. The root cause of the environmental problems in the world, I thought he says, lies in the collapse of the ecosystem and climatic conditions. He says it's ignorance and selfishness. And it becomes all the more striking for me. As scientists, we don't know how to resolve these two problems. I would like to express my gratitude to Ayşe Önder for composing the piece we listened to. As an admirer of Yunus, I wanted to get a unique piece. You know, it is very difficult as artists. Önder supported him, Yiğit supported her, Önder vocal, also in the vocal, supported her, although she had twin babies. Thank you very much. I will ask you to look at the relationship between the verses in the song and Mr. Gaspet. There are 10 billion neurons in the brain, and the valuable thing here is that we can establish such a connection, and we know that we have the most creative person here. By the way, you might say I was dancing. I missed that verse. Let me repeat it. I elevate the falling water, I turn it to rising water. A lesson I learned, helping the others in need. Hazan, can you establish the connection between these verses and what Gaspet said? A very assertive one, right? Your interpreters cannot hear due to the lack of microphone. So, Yunus Emre says, I have a concern, I have a trouble. And when you look at its relationship with Gaspet, he says, we cannot find a way to resolve it. The problem of ignorance and selfishness. Ayşe made a great introduction. I don't know whether you've been able to listen to her well. She said, yes, the youth presents a huge opportunity, a huge advantage, but this is a water. This water can flow in vain, but also create meaningful projects, creating many firsts for humanity. We should not waste this water, she said. how can we ensure that this water is not wasted for the benefits of visually challenged? If I'm not right, please correct me. Volkan is he's the co-founder of Volkan, and Kürşat studied in one of these 15 schools for the visually challenged. Since 2017, YGA volunteers, the people you see here, came together with the visually challenged individuals and had a 2-hour session. And it wasn't limited with that. I think Mr. Erhan said that I see it as a leadership school, as a great ecosystem for entrepreneurship. I think no leadership school in the world can consist of visually challenged who comprise 10% of the staff. We select people like Kürşat who have a small ego but a huge heart. When you go to a camp, for example, to America Leadership Camp for 2 weeks with a visually challenged individual, when you see how Kürşat tries to find his bag, when you see that Kürşat loves watching movies but cannot watch them, when you see that Kürşat hits the sign as he walks in New York, you feel that concern of Kürşat in your heart. The brightest students in Turkey do not do a project for the visually challenged, but do a project with the visually challenged individuals, working together with Kürşat. Science is a right for everyone, we say. And you create science sets so that education can be available to them. And you try to take those scientific sets to different children in Anatolia. So you take this water and elevate it. And this is not some wasted water. Here you're using the technology leverage, Serdar's definition, great definition, and turn it into something meaningful. Gasped was also inspired by this verse of Yunus. Selfishness and neglect. When we look at the resumes of many young individuals, you see that we look at their future rather than past. These are the friends with dreams. And the first thing we do is that we freeze their dreams and we teach them how to be a dream partner. We make them, for example, a partner with Hassan's dream. And that wasn't easy for our dream partners at the beginning as well. They said, Sinan, we have dreams for humanity. You have bright students, so let's help them implement them. I told them, well, we want the young individuals to have their dreams rather than implementing your dreams. They should dream, they should create that project so that they can move from selfishness to selflessness. So you definitely need dream partners to make a dream come true. But before making that dream come true with your dream partners, you need to be able to become a dream partner. These two things are invaluable on the journey from selfishness to selflessness. And in YGA, these are the two critical things, as Gasped referred to negligence and selfishness. We have all traveling to 50 countries, scientific sets, taken to different parts of the world. So if you use this metaphor of elevating the water that flows down and turning it into something advantageous, I think we are living in a period where we cannot foresee tomorrow. And in periods where you have such blurry waters, Melike Aydın has this apt metaphor. Who was the chair of YGA in the 5th year? Anchor is important. Where you place that anchor is important. And they actually placed this anchor in 3 spots. When Shule met with YGA, as she's one of the oldest dream partners, she said this real world project is a great one, or twin scientific sets will really help those individuals, those disadvantaged children access science. And that's where she placed the anchor. These are very valuable projects, okay? And then over time, Murat and Gökhan actually combined with each other. Murat says Gökhan is a person with a huge heart, with small ego, with so much actually benefits. He impresses me. I saw that Asude, Ömer, Cihan, all others had those anchors in time. As people started to see and say, these young individuals shaped my dream. And that anchor went a little deeper. When you place that anchor in the project, that becomes all the more important. They say, don't lean on a wall, it gets demolished. Don't lean on a tree, as it may just get broken. If you do place those anchors and see its story, it turns into something else, right? Gamze said, let's create Big Chef in Anatoly Hisar, but then you decided to change it again, right? Kaptan says whether we should take Sinan on board or not, the team changes. So when you anchor something to a project, actually, when you anchor it to a team, it sort of can pivot. Over time, that's why we should place this anchor to people rather than projects. But then I came to realize that that is not the best decision either. As humans have this margin for error. Don't I make mistakes? Yes, I do too. 5 years ago, Asude was the leader in the summit. She brought Ömer and Yaman and brought them to me. If she had placed that anchor to me as the founder of YGA, Sinan abi has this dream and the barriers were higher back then. He showed the courage, and if she had placed that anchor in me, she wouldn't have been able to give such feedback to me. Where did she place that anchor? Actually, in the YGA office, the wall says, I didn't come for you, I came to help hearts. I came to help others. Asta came and said, you had a dream with a YGA partner yesterday. We believe what you're saying is right, but you couldn't win the heart of a person. We saw this fight of me and you. We saw that you could not internalize the adage there. They said, we quarantine you for 40 days. That's what they said.
Think of it as such, a founding executive board president, and we were going with Ege. And when I saw him, I was like, oh, because I've known him since the age of 13, and I can't even think of the fact that he's 26 months, you will get me. Someone who joined YGA at the age of 13. Now, that person telling the founding president that, well, we're going to be putting you into quarantine for 40 days. You know, that hurts me. Fazıl Bey, in a minute, perhaps, will talk about that John, you know, that soul, myself was hurt, but perhaps this is not what I should have used. But today I'm very happy, and I was angry back then, and I perhaps need to simply say that the fact that Asude and Deniz were very much anchored with that anchor, it really gave me hope. This is the prescription of an eternity, being there for the eternity, not the structure of the arch or the anchor, but this is the common value of YGA. So that's why on the television program, yes, I was trying to tell Fatih Altaylı, and he was with that, you know, how do you get such awards, so on and so forth. Yes, it's a young NGO of 21 years, but it has very sound roots dating back to 7 centuries ago. I could say that Agahabi, you know that they are writing down very fancy words, but internalization of those verses by Yunus Emre, with self-confidence, they come up to me. And the anchor is simply both is put forward, dating back to Yunus Emre. Do you think YGA is going to be established and organized in the upcoming centuries as well? Well, I think it's a big yes, because the anchor is thrown to Yunus Emre. And when we have that spirit, that YGA spirit who have internalized these words, I believe that in the upcoming years and decades, we will be having great events at YGA. This is what I would like to share with you, a quotation from Aziz Sancar. The fact that every problem happened in my slot and nothing left to the dream partners. Can I just take it back? Because you can't obviously hear it. Shall I try it? Okay, so I will be rewinding it. I will put it on again. You look great over here. Okay.
Memlekete, insanlığa önemli katkılar yapmak için
In order to make a
Robert
contribution to the
College'den mezun
humanity,
olmaya
to the
gerek
country,
yok.
you don't necessarily
Savur'dan,
have to be an alumni of Robert College. From Savur, Sürgücü,
Türkiye'nin herhangi bir
from any
üniversitesinden, lisesinden mezun
school,
olup hem memlekete hem
you could
insanlığa
make
önemli katkılar
significant
yapabilirsiniz.
contributions to your
Bizim çocuklara
homeland, to the
güven
to the
vermemiz
country,
lazım.
to the
Yani bu
humanity.
çok önemli.
We need to give trust to these children. This is very key. Mehmet Evyap was probably going to say that you made him say that, right? Because I'm obsessed with Robert College alumni. No, of course, he said it himself. He underlines one thing very important. We need to give trust to these kids. And this is one of the most touching lines about leadership. A good leader makes other people trust them. Me, Sinan Yaman, as a co-founder of YGA, I have to make all of our dream partners believe me, then I'm a good leader. But beyond that, a good leader makes people believe themselves. So believing themselves, this is where I have been contemplating quite a lot. Well, because there are people who are believing themselves so much but gives me no trust whatsoever. So this comes down to the positioning of the anchor. If you simply throw your anchor to Yunus Emre and like-minded personalities, then those people give me trust. Well, you know, humans err, and they could make errors if I work with those people, just like Sinan Yaman. But because the anchors are onto the values, then they would take whatever science or whatever outcome has been produced there and would correct it and work on it. That's why the quotation of Aziz Abi is very important. You don't necessarily have to be a Robert College alumni. And we have many, more than thousands of young people from all parts of Anatolia. For them, I would like to reiterate one thing. In 2021, students are fellows who are watching us from different parts of Anatolia and Anatolian schools. In 2031, in an upcoming decade, you might be one of the leaders of the 8th period of YGA. Why do I say that? The person you see here, yes, I'm the founder of YGA. Gökhan and Enis took the flame from me, and they made great progress. Salih likewise followed them, and then Asu Devre Sağlık and Melike put it on to the international level. Now Fulden leading the 6th period. She is a graduate of an Anatolian university, not from, it is indeed the Anadolu University, indeed the name of her university is Anadolu. So how come she's now leading the 6th term of YGA? Well, if you could just ask yourself, can I take this responsibility? So, as you could see, well, she is trying to coexist, co-create, to serve humanity with her double wings, and for 10 years, every quarter. Fulden, so there is something on the photograph. We also checked whether Fulden could fly with the other double-winged. We did a climate analysis. We asked our fellow team members, can she take right decisions in a liberated environment? And whenever there was a shortcoming, we told her, we gave her that feedback, and she developed herself. Fulden küçük, she has small ego, but she has a huge heart. And her together grade mark or score is so great that this is why she is leading this term. So this is why, you know, you don't have to necessarily be an alumni of Robert College or any other fancy or international school. So this is indeed the very tangible example of that principle that we execute at YGA. Fulden is not trying to save the day. There are fires, very intense fires, and we talk about science. There is a disaster, earthquake, flooding. We talk about science, but to see the future, to save the future and to see the future, we need to create and design and develop preventive measures, and mobility, and overall mobility of science and technology is what we need. Gaspet talked about the wicked problems, and this could be an established solution for those problems. Melike, I'm checking the time. My time is up. Can I give it a try? If we have time, if you have 1 minute, now that we have these great dream partners, Ayşe Önen's this great song, can we sing it together as an aficionado of Yunus Emre? I know my time is up, but if it's okay for you, let's try to sing it together, shall we? Who is going to? Well, can I start it? Okay, you start it. Okay. Okay. They're going to press it. You're going to see the lyrics. So these are the lyrics. Where the vocal is singing the first part and the second part. Let's sing it together. This is going to be on video, and that would be shared with you in remembrance of 700th anniversary of YGA. And you say bravo to you! Bravo to you! Well, happy who could put their anchor or could understand, internalize and live Yunus Emre and Yunus Emre aficionados like me. Sinan abi, thank you so much. Sinan abi quoted as scientist, and I took a note. The real problem of the world is indifference and selfishness. For the solution of these problems, we need people, dream partners and volunteers with double partners, with double wings, who care about these problems. And we have a definition who acts with their mind and heart. We have a great example fitting this definition. For the last 15 years, Murat Özyeğin has been spending time for all YGA project, but he prioritizes in the real sense of the word. So it's not for random volunteering. And we are witnessing how he is prioritizing YGA. And in a minute, I'm going to invite Murat Özyeğin, our distinguished dream partner, to the stage. He will have a great person to interview. And then we have a small concert, special for you and YGA Summit. So please check that your phones are on mute. And Murat abi, I'd like to invite you to the floor. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ayça. Thank you very much. Murat abi, welcome. Hi. Well, I do hope that I could live up to your expectations. And indeed, you have been very kind in the introduction. So every moment which I spare with my dear brothers and sisters, it's a great opportunity for me. So I call Gökhan my mentor and my mentee because YGA is teaching everyone, offers a mutual learning environment, and I'm very happy to be here. I have known dear Fazıl for such a long time, and I called him 1.5 months ago, dear Fazıl, on 11th of December, what does your schedule look like? And he was kind enough to tell me that, Murat, because it's going to be a great platform with the young people. And I really wish to simply introduce you, your philosophy, your approach, the way you care about the young people and your love for the society is a great match. Well, unfortunately, I have a concert and an album work in Germany, so I can't make it. See, well, we said, okay, that was there, but he's so sensitive. And he really listens to the other person. It was almost 1 month. It was on Wednesday. Murat, well, you were talking about something on 11th of December. Well, is that still on? Fazıl, are you serious? Are you available? Yeah. Because of the pandemic, my concert is cancelled. I think a violin player was tested positive. And the new regulations, so on and so forth. And he really cared so much about meeting the young people that he's now with us. And actually, we need to appreciate him because not only with his music, he also has one of the biggest hearts of the world. He's a great father, he's a great musician, he's a great human being, he's a great friend. And with dear Cemal, they are going to be putting up a great, extraordinary performance. But even before that, we're going to hear his perspective. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I give you distinguished Fazıl Say. That happened to me too, Fazıl. The guys helped me. Okay. Can we put you over here so that everyone can see you? Welcome, Fazıl. Thank you so much. Thank you. We were together last night at dinner. Well, thank you so much for introducing me to a great community. It's a great pleasure and pride for me to be here. The pleasure is all ours. and it is indeed a great pride. So taking the stage with you, sharing the stage with you is not something which I would normally could do, but let's say, at least in this format, we could do this. I mean, you know, this is the best I could do perhaps. So dear Fazıl, I'm talking about the youth and young people, and somehow you ended up calling me. And I could simply go on for hours. And at dinner, you told me that, well, you will have a common album work with 2 young musicians, and you always try to incorporate them somehow to your work. And when Cemal arrived in the morning, I saw that your eyes lit up looking at him. And for years, in different countries, you have been talking about the young Turkish musicians up and coming. You are always caring about those. And YGA is a platform of the youth. So why do you care about young people so much? Can we hear your perspective? Well, in Turkey, well, if there are up-and-coming young talents that we need to support, I have always did my best. I have always done my best to support them. Why? Because you are scientists, we have scientists, you have heard Mete, the Olympic winner. So, think of the airports. Salzburg, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, Rome, Leonardo da Vinci Airport, Warsaw, Frederick Chopin Airport. So, countries are remembered with their artists. When you tell me Colomba, the first thing is Gabriel Garcia Marquez, which I could remember or think of. When you say Russia to me, Tchaikovsky, Rachmaninov, Dostoevsky, right? These are the names coming to the top of your head. Culture is such a notion that, it's such a phenomenon that, well, it is universal. Dostoevsky is read by Brazilians and Turkish alike, and this is in Russian and translated to global languages. Music is perhaps more universal. Therefore, in this environment, Turkey should have more internationally acclaimed artists. This is what is urgently seen in the 21st century. We need to have more composers, more artists, more writers, known all over the world. This is what I believe. You have a point, Fazıl, and you wrote a letter to the youth, and have a passion, be fond of your whatever you're doing, feel it under your skin. This is your recommendation, and if you don't feel that, just don't do it, because there would be no productivity over there. I'm a close witness to your love for your job, and before your concerts, international concerts, or right after your concerts, we have been together. Every time, it's as if you are going onto the stage for the first time ever. How do you motivate yourself? How do you keep yourself that energized? And what would you recommend the young people over here? Well, when I define myself, this is how I would define myself. I'm a leaser. I have been renting this talent. And many people have different talents, and they're discovered. Like their parents are supporting them and guide them. Well, there is another important factor, the master and apprenticeship relationship. The most important people in my life are my piano masters, my singing professors, even more than my parents. But of course, your environment, immediate surroundings, the competition that you're exposed to, and the path. Particularly when I was young, the challenges which I suffered from, they all feed your art. And you need to win contests so that you will be heard by larger audiences. You need to see different cultures, share your performance, make albums, record them, and you will have followers or win awards, will be heard by different people. So this is the competition that you are going to be in, and you have to be very well equipped. You should be very well prepped up for that. Regarding work, this is what I believe. So, you know, this is the reality. So rather than 1,000 hours of bad practice, I will do 1 hour of quality practice. It's all about the balance.
I think we know what that is, but in order for us to know that, we should have a very equipped personality. Very correct. So we definitely support the same philosophy and we have similar opinions. You refer to the dreams of young people. Well, one philosopher says dreaming is half of the success. And if you dream something, that means you can set out for it. A very good definition indeed, dear Fazıl. And young people pay attention to that. I know that you lamented that concerts were cancelled during COVID, that the generations were away from the stage, away from the piano, away from the performance, and you expressed that sadness at every opportunity in a sincere way, and you produced projects for them, and I'm the biggest witness of that. In addition to that, Fazıl, you can live in any part of the world. You are the most demanded artist in the world. We were going to give this concert in our bank in the Netherlands. He said, just tell us about the feasible day. We will take care of the rest. They said Carnegie Hall, Tokyo, Paris, Vienna. Similarly, in many parts of the US, you see a huge interest, but you never leave Turkey aside. You never put Turkey aside. You deliver concerts in Anatolia, even with your busiest schedule. I know that Nazım Oratorio doesn't provide you financial gains, but still you're doing your best to support the artists there. You are bringing them together, and in order to ensure that Anatolian spirit continues to live, you put your signature under many compositions as well as showing up. When an artist becomes such a global asset, he also starts thinking about politics. So what does make you fall in love with your country? Thank you very much for your kind observations. To start with, I have done my best. I have tried to do my best so far. I went to Germany at the age of 17. I had a 4 to 5 year higher education after graduating from Ankara State Conservatory. Then I moved to Berlin, then I moved to New York, and my daughter was born in New York in 2000. I came back to Turkey in 2002. Now, I can address your question with 5-6 reasons. As I lived in America, yes, in Carnegie Hall, New York, in Boston, Chicago, and other important cities, I had important concerts, but there are also concerts in small American cities maybe you haven't heard of. Actually, in doing so, I asked, why don't I do it in Erzurum, Malatya, Adana, Antep, Samsun, Trabzon, in my country, as I feel a debt, as I feel gratitude, rather than going to Iowa or other cities, right? So I wanted to share it with my country. That's the first reason. The second reason is 20 years have passed since I moved to Turkey, but we also are nourished by Turkey to a huge extent soil, music, folklore, troubles of Turkey nourish us. I created compositions for almost all the 20th century poets, even Yunus Emre, Pir Sultan Abdal. Mr. Selami referred to public poets, Nazım's oratorium, Aşık Veysel. I composed for many of them. And my DNA as a composer is nourished. I believe that Europe is in need of a second renaissance. There are actually clocks in arts. Artists are away from the society. They cannot move away from that avant-garde understanding. And the classic music is not used as a simple way of communication, but is rather viewed as elitist, as academic. So the Western world definitely needs another renaissance. And if, as Turks, we start with our DNA in music and start in arts, we have a clear path ahead. I will going to play you the music we composed together very soon, and it's a summary of what I have experienced together. Whether you live in New York and go to tours, or live in Istanbul and join tours, it is the same. In the 1990s, I was mostly focused in the US, but for the past decade, I generally focus on Europe. I can go anywhere with one single flight, so I don't have any loss because of that decision. And that nourishment is a bigger richness, an internal richness than all the material gains as an artist. I cannot live without my art. I cannot live without my music. It is as valuable as oxygen, water, and bread. It has become such an important asset in my life that I must ensure I get proper nourishment. Very correct indeed. Actually, when we look at the library in your house, your excitement as you take me around it, the also bright looks you have towards the young individuals are all important gains for Turkey, so that many young Turkish artists can be close to you and you can lend any support as they require and exert efforts for them. This ecosystem, this togetherness with young people, and not only young people. We discussed your connection with also the elderly artists and figures, including Mr. Genco. So you are lying just at the center of this ecosystem, which is valuable for Turkey, which is valuable for all of us. When I extended the invitation for the first time in early November, I didn't think that Yunus Emre was the most important denominator. I knew his contribution to YGA philosophy. I knew about your composition, which you will, for example, perform with Cemal, and everyone is excited to listen to that. What is it that connects you to Yunus Emre, that excites you, and that makes you own up to his opinions? Cemal Süreyya has this interesting saying for Yunus Emre. He says, actually, he wrote the first poems in this language with the deciduous teeth of Turkish, baby teeth of Turkish. In other words, these are the first poems created in a language, maybe not the first ones, but as long-lasting as 700 years. Also, Kaygusuz Aptal is another important poet from the same era. These are dervishes, Pir Sultan Abdal, Yunus Emre, Kaygusuz Abdal. And the word is Abdal, which means being dedicated, which means being a dervish. And when you look at Yunus Emre's poems, you see this sacrifice, you see this compassion, the love for God, the actually compassionate approach. And here you see those elements from East and West, not only in Yunus, but also others, that love, that actually humbleness, that modesty, that compassion, which is actually a very important indicator for us, an important pathfinder for us. In YGA, we try to raise individuals with double wings, people with small egos but big hearts, people who are concerned about the people around them, who are concerned about their society. I think Yunus Emre brings all these values together as a common denominator. And here, as we talked about our country, youth, our troubles, I think this is an enormously important denominator. Tchaikovsky has this very nice saying: art is present because the world is not a perfect place. I mean, an artist sits down to create a compose or learn a piece from the past. If you can overcome your ego, can you achieve that? You need to create products, but first you need to create paths. I mean, I have created so many music pieces so far. You may say, no, the journey starts anew tomorrow or again and again. I have around 100 pieces. Now I will, in the afternoon, start working on my 101st composition to do something better. Maybe I don't view the others insufficient, or maybe I see other things to express, other troubles to address, other concerns. You last night said there are cancellations in many performances. I was supposed to be together with many valuable artists. You said I had these down moments for 3 days, but you want to stand up again, you said. Well, you have such a social responsibility that your demotivation cannot last for than 3 days. So hopefully you're going to get inspiration from young people here as well. And let's get a promise that you will play it for the next year's YGA Summit. Okay? Dear Fazıl, hopefully you will not call me to say, what have you done in 6 months' time, but the young people here are famous for producing projects. So we want to ensure that your music, your philosophy, your compositions are taken to as many young people as possible. I know I have created some trouble for you, but I know that you are going to benefit from it a lot as you compose your pieces. I know that you will do your best to benefit young people. I therefore feel a peace of mind. I know that you will enjoy it. Thank you very much for this very nice conversation, and thank you to our audience for their attention. It is a great excitement. It's a great thrill for me to be together with this select number of audience. Now you're going to be together on the stage, Cemal, who is more talented and handsome than me. Therefore, without further ado, I would like to invite him to stage as the excitement reached a climax, a great performance awaits them. So we will take off our microphones in the backstage and you will come back for the performance. Let me tell you a little about Cemal and what we will play. This is going to be a half an hour concert, a 40-minute concert. Would you like to see that before the lunch? Thank you very much, Fazıl. It's great to have you. Thank you. So we'll be back in 1 minute. In 1 minute. Okay, thank you.
Hello, thank you so much. I'm a proud YGA alumni, and at YGA, we strive to raise double-winged young individuals who are both conscientious and competent and who work together toward creating a better future through innovative technology projects. And our next speaker is actually a great role model for all of us. He's a computer scientist, a tech executive, is the co-founder of Google Maps and investor in 50 companies, including one of our role model companies, Gamma. So it is my pleasure to welcome Lars Rasmussen.
Hello, hi, Gökçe. How are you?
Hi, good. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here with us, Lars, today.
Thanks so much for having me. This is super exciting.
Yeah, it's such an amazing opportunity to have a conversation with you and to share it with our amazing audience. And at YGA, we say that your life doesn't change with a book or a seminar, but it changes with the people you meet along the way. So I would love to actually start by asking you to share your journey with us, because I know there's like quite a few stories of meeting the right people in there too.
Yes, definitely. Well, it's a long story, as you can tell from my white beard here. I was born and raised in Denmark a long time ago. I did my first degree at a university in Denmark in Aarhus. It was a math degree, really. And then I had always wanted to leave the country, see the world. Not that I have anything against Denmark. It's a beautiful country, but the world is so big and so exciting. I managed to get to Scotland, to the University of Edinburgh. I did a master's degree there. I started a PhD as well. And then my professor, Alistair Sinclair in Edinburgh, he got a job at UC Berkeley in California. And he kind of packed me up in his suitcase and tagged me along. So I finished my PhD at UC Berkeley, which is a pretty important school in computer science, very hard to get into. I kind of got a free seat because of Alistair. And then I graduated. So I spent a lot of time in school. I'm not recommending either for or against. That's just how I did it. I think I was almost 30 by the time I finally graduated. And now we're in the late 90s. The crazy .com boom was going on, and quite a lot of academics were leaving academia to build startups, internet startups, Web 1.0 startups. And a professor down the hall, Mike Luby, who's a great friend of mine, fantastic theoretical computer science, algorithmic math genius. He was starting a startup right as I graduated. He hired me as his first engineer because I had some programming experience back in Denmark when my brother and I were both students at the same time. We kind of spend our days coding, like as professional coders for a company in the printing industry. We did graphical design software for these high-end professional printers. And then we'd kind of like only do our studies right around exams. So in Denmark at the time, this is no longer true, you didn't have to show up for class. You just had to pass your exams. And so you could perfectly have a full-time job through the semester, and then you take enough time off around exams to study all your stuff, pass your exams, and go back to work. So he hired me because I had that theoretical background from my PhD and some actual engineering experience from my job when I was an undergraduate. And we built this company. It's called Digital Fountain. Had phenomenal it had phenomenal technology underlying it, but we didn't quite manage to figure out turning it into the kind of explosive products that people are looking for. So we raised like $40 million. Didn't quite find the product we were working on, and then 5 years in, the dot-com bubble burst in what 2001, a spectacular stock crash centered around tech, and Digital Fountain started laying people off. My brother got laid off, I got laid off, and for other reasons, I had kind of moved to Australia. Digital Fountain had an office there. I transferred to Australia, and when we got laid off, and everyone was laying off, no one was hiring. My brother was like, "Hey, Lars, I got these ideas in mapping, and I think just the two of us, we can make a prototype." And then because no one was hiring, we might as well. So we did that. We worked for a year, tried to raise money, impossible. Like everyone had lost all their investments, right? No one was investing. We managed to get 2 of our Australian friends to join the effort. Everyone worked for free. We're using all our savings, and we didn't really have any savings because in the dot-com world, everyone's going to be a millionaire overnight. And so a year and a bit in, we tried to raise money again. I flew back to California. We pitched a bunch of the remaining VCs there, and one of them got interested enough that we started exchanging like numbers and potential terms for an investment. They were going to invest $2 million for 40% of the company, which by then was a magic deal. Today, it'd be a terrible deal compared to what goes on in startup land now. But we didn't quite get to the point of them actually making the investment. We had just discussed it. No promises were broken or any such thing, but they just didn't invest in the end, as is often the case, right? You go through this funnel with an investor and you get closer and closer and closer, and only a very small number of the startups that's pitching an investor, in particular big VC in Silicon Valley, get through. And we got close, but not quite there. And then we were broke. And we didn't know what to do. We asked all the people that had been excited about our tech for help. And one of them, Ram Shriram, who had just barely met him, the investor that didn't invest, introduced us to Ram. He was going to be our business guy because we're all techies. He was going to be a business guy. We just met him like once, and he liked what we did. And then when the deal didn't happen, we asked Ram, "Hey, what do you think we should do?" And he said, "Look, you should go sell yourself to Google." So the reason that the investor decided not to invest in our mapping thing was that Yahoo, which was a big player back then still, we're in the early 2000s, they had just launched a thing on the map site that sort of had tiny little flavors of what we're doing. And the investor said, "Look, we're afraid your window is closing because one of the big players is playing in your space, and we're just not going to invest." And then Ram said, "Look, the same reason the investor decided not to invest is going to make Google want to buy you, because back then Google had nothing in mapping. And Google was Yahoo's big competitor and vice versa. And here's a chance if they buy you, they can leapfrog everyone else, because what we were designing in maps really was quite different from anything else out there." And so next week we were in a meeting with Larry Page, because Ram happens to sit on Google's board, good person to have met. He introduced us to Larry. We pitched it to him. He said, "Look, I really like this." And he suggested quite a fundamental change actually in our technology. Back then we were writing a C++ application that you would install on your PC. This is long before iPhones and so on. You install this application on your PC because we thought that web browsers were just not powerful enough to deliver the experience we wanted. And Larry said, "Look, I like your way of thinking about maps, but Google is really a web company. Google was really at the forefront of moving all this stuff from your desktop onto the web." And he's like, "Are you sure this can't be done in a web browser?" And so then we left this meeting in what I like to call a heightened state of motivation, by which I mean that we were broke and had zero other options than selling to Google, and like really broke. Like my next rent check was going to bounce. And we had maxed out our credit cards with a little pension. Everything was gone, right? There was no more money left. And so we went. It was the most productive 3 weeks of our lives. We worked like 24/7, and we kind of disproved one of the key theses underlying our entire startup, which was that the web was just not powerful enough to deliver these things. And we managed to build an Internet Explorer, which was the big browser back then, what became Google Maps. We actually it was specifically to sell our stuff to Google, and so we even put Google's logo on, and we had the markers on the map were little lava lamps because Google really liked lava lamps. It was part of their internal, everywhere inside Google there were lava lamps. And so we went back 3 weeks later and we showed this website that could do almost the same as our downloadable application. And we were just kind of like, do you mean something like this? After we had blown our own minds that this were even possible. And then Google bought us. It took a long time because they were busy going public. We're now in 2004.
And you were still in Australia when Google bought you, right?
That's right. Yeah. So I was still in Australia. Our two friends were in Australia. My brother was back in California. And so they bought us right as they were going public, which is kind of a heady time for the company. And having just almost gotten this investment, we were quite sure that we were almost going to be bought by Google as well. But they actually ended up, as you know, buying us, and they added 2 people to our team. Brett Taylor was one of them. He joined as a product manager. Brett's one of the smartest people I know. He later became the CTO of Facebook, and he's now the co-CEO of Salesforce, and crazy talented, much younger than me, crazy talented person. Anyway, I'm talking way too much here.
Yeah.
I did Google Maps.
Yeah.
We did another project at Google Wave that was a equally spectacular failure. And
actually, like, as you talk about your Google Maps story, it's like you were in Australia, your whole team was there, your brother was in California, and then you all moved back. But then you got linked back to Australia.
That's right.
And we actually would love to hear a little bit about that. You are one of, more importantly, you helped Melanie and Cliff with one of the most important aspects of building their company, which was building their team. Can you tell us a little bit about your Canvas story, like how you got involved, what you did?
Definitely. Yeah, look, there's another of my most favorite stories, and it was a relatively small amount of work for me, but that was only possible because of a million different things that had happened prior, including, of course, being in Australia in the first place. And it started with an introduction. So I knew this guy who was an investor. We had he'd been excited about Google Wave, and I was in Australia. He liked to come to Australia because he's a kite surfer, and Australia has good kite surfing. And so he introduced me to Mel and Cliff. I think they were both still student or very recent graduates, very young. And Bill was like, these guys have something, Lars. I can't, but they have something. We gotta help them out. They had this idea in building online graphical design tools. And remember, I had worked as a programmer in this space 15 years earlier, so I had an affinity towards it. He introduced us, and I was immediately captivated by the tenacity and the passion and the insights that Melanie had about the state of design, which everything at the time was Adobe. All design things had been either bought or outcompeted by Adobe, and no one really dared go there. And Melanie was just like, I'm going to do better, and here's how. And in particular, it was about capturing the needs of people who are not professional designers. Because a lot of people will go and buy $2,000 worth of Adobe tools just to be able to design a flyer for their hair salon. But people who really cared about how things looked, but were not professional designers. And Melanie had this vision. And Bill was like, look, Lars, these guys, they have this vision, they have this tenacity, this incredible work ethic that's just very compelling. But they don't have technical backgrounds. Melanie was a graphics designer, Cliff was a business student. And Bill said, if you can help them recruit a tech team that you personally approve of, I'll invest. And he told both me and Melanie this. And so we set out to work, and it took like a year to just land the first 2 technologists. It took almost a year. And again, Mel just wouldn't give up. And they were both people that I had worked with at Google. And this project that had just ended Google Wave, they'd both been on it. And so I knew a lot of engineers in Australia who were at various stages between projects. And I introduced Melanie to a handful of the best people that had specific skills that all were relevant. And then she set out to recruit them. And it took a while because people are, busy. And one of the five or six I introduced her to, Cam Adams, is a brilliant actually designer, but also a really world-class programmer. Rare combination to have someone who's world-class in both areas. He had started his own startup, and you can't just like walk away from your own startup. And luckily he decided with his co-founders that they were not going to pursue that thing. And then he went and joined Canva. So he's the third co-founder, and that took a while. And then
and I think one of the great things you pointed out about that is it's very important to find high caliber people, which is what you are helping them with. But then you also said the hard part is onboarding them to that vision. So
exactly.
What are your thoughts on that process? Yeah.
Yeah, well, so Google so Dave Herndon, the second one, was still at Google. And when he announced to Google he was going to leave, I think Google like 5x his salary overnight to get him to not leave. And so it took a lot of effort on Melanie's part to persuade him to still join. And she wrote this has been published now. She wrote a fairy tale about him and her and Canva and Google and me a little bit that ends up with him making the right choice. It was like a graphics novel. She's a graphics designer.
And joining Canva and moving to Australia.
No, he was in Australia. He's Australian.
No, but so like, was that kind of what they were trying to convince him to do?
Yes, exactly. And so he joined, and I'd like to think he has not regretted the move. He's the CTO of Canva now, which is by far Australia. I think it's like the fifth biggest private startup by evaluation, software startup, and they're amazing people. And many of the folks I work with at Google later joined in various capacities, and it's been a fantastic story. And the thing, I know we're running a little short of time, but the thing I really want to say, the thing that was really compelling about Melanie and Cliff was the tenacity. They just wouldn't give up, even though it took that whole year to recruit just two of the right level of tech people. It's hard in the beginning when you haven't started, you don't have money.
Yeah.
And they just wouldn't give up. They just kept coming back. And one thing in particular, we were kind of hanging out in this cool group of kite surfing, beach loving, party going networks of entrepreneurs, investors, and sports people. And when we were partying on the beach, Mel and Cliff were in the room working on their pitch. And every time, they're always in the room working. I hope they find some time to enjoy life at some point. But they're like the hardest working people I know. And I often say that I've invested in companies around the world. And often I find it's in the non-obvious places I find the most successful places, because in Silicon Valley, you graduate from a good school there, you can get a $400,000 or $500,000 job straight out of school, which creates sort of almost like an entitlement sense. Whereas in other places, people are more hungry, more willing to work hard for little money, take the risks that it takes, I think, to change the world. And so I work in Athens now, and I find the same kind of hunger here now that I found in Sydney 20 years ago. I'm sure it's still there. I just don't happen to live there. But I'm very interested in entrepreneurial spirits in the less obvious places. I worked in Silicon Valley, I worked in London, I worked in New York, but I kind of like it best in a place like Sydney or Athens. So I have not been to Turkey much, but I imagine it's the same there.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing all of this, because both your story and in the Canva story that you shared with us, we can see that like what it means to be an entrepreneur. Yes, there is a lot of like celebrations of building your own thing, but it is more than anything. It's hard work, it's tenacity, it's committing to solving this problem. And I think in both cases you described the importance of like solving it for others, like capturing the needs of others who doesn't have access to all of these things. So that brings me to our last question, which would be like, you studied computer science too, and you invested in a lot of companies. You're a tech innovator and investor, and you were at the forefront of all of these, like Web 1, Web 2, from Google Maps to being an engineering director at Facebook, founding your own startups and investing in them. What would you say to your young self or our audience about the future of technology, Web 3.0, and about entrepreneurship?
Well, So I highly recommend trying. It's been a tremendous source of joy for myself, also frustration, deep frustration sometimes, and incredibly hard work. I shall not lie to you. In fact, I think the best advice is don't actually go and build your own company unless you just can't not do it. Like I think I want to build a company, let me think of something to work on. Might not be the best motivation as compared to there's this vision, there's a problem I want to solve that I just can't stop thinking about. No one else is doing it. Someone needs to build a new company. You know, try to persuade yourself not to do it. And if you can't persuade yourself not to do it, then consider doing it. Because it is hard work and mostly it fails. This is the truth. Of course, the stories we hear are about all the successes, but 9 out of 10 of these efforts fail. And you know, I think of myself as being relatively successful, but most of the things I've started have failed. And so that's one thing. The other thing is that tenacity and not giving up, those are unbelievably important things. Like when I look back at Google Maps, there are many times when we probably should have given up, or any sane person would have given up. And it's not because we were actually like made out of steel, but just that no one was hiring. And so we thought, oh, there's nothing else to do. We might as well continue. But I have since come to understand that it was because we didn't give up when things were looking really terrible for us. That's why it became such a big success. And so that I think is super important. The last thing is that there's never been a time, I think, in the world with more like technological breakthroughs just waiting to happen in clean energy, in cryptocurrency, in fusion energy in particular. It blows my mind that that might actually happen soon. I'm personally getting really excited about quantum computers, which would take an hour to explain if you don't happen to know what it is. But quantum computers is this thing that kind of mathematically blew up when I was in grad school 25 years ago, 30 years ago, that is now starting possibly to be feasible to build. And so there's tons and tons of things to get into. I think many of them are very kind of deep tech, requires a lot of education and knowledge to do, whereas maybe when I started 30 years ago, a small team of software engineers could build something much more impactful, much more quickly. And I think now there's sort of there's a tendency to need something somewhat deeper, which I think is a great thing. And don't be afraid to go there. I think is the key lesson. I think I may have held back a little bit, but I can't wait to dive into quantum computing now, which is probably the most intensely theoretical, deep, crazy, wacky thing you could possibly do in my field.
Thank you. I mean, I would have to admit that this is really powerful for us and our audience too, because at YGA, the YGA Impact companies, they're always looking for the right people who believe in that vision. So as you mentioned before, if we don't have an idea that we're crazy about solving, we should be joining the teams whose vision we really do believe
exactly.
in.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, you know, statistically, sorry. I was just saying, statistically, if you're looking for success, you're much better off joining someone else's rocket ship than trying to build your own. But someone does have to build that rocket ship.
Well, thank you so much, Lars. We really appreciate you graciously accepted our offer to share your journey with us. And it's an amazing journey of the struggles of building your own company, but also the commitment to doing it and doing it with the right people toward the right vision, like from your college days going with Alistair to Berkeley, to meeting your team, to meeting other investors, meeting the team of Canva. Everything aligns a lot with what the community we're trying to build at YGA. So thank you so much for sharing your story.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure, guys. It's very exciting. I hope to meet everyone who's in the audience here. Maybe those who do start a company come ask me for an investment or other help.
Çok keyifli bir sohbet oldu. Gökçe'ye ve Lars'a çok teşekkürler.
Thank you very much. This has been an enjoyable conversation with Gökçe and Lars. We sent to Beril to our studio in the morning, and it appears she arrived there. I'm curious about the preparations and such. That's why I'm connecting to Beril. Beril, hi. Beril, can you hear me? Hi Ayça, how are you? I'm doing super. Excitement at its fullest. How has been your journey? Quite nice. If only I was able to be there. Actually, I heard of great things. I'd like to share them with you. Well, the theme of the summit is touted. For example, after listening to Mete Gazos's speech, I saw this arrow effect. If that's okay, I would like to actually play it so that you can check whether it's audible. Sure, the screen is yours. As you know, at 9:20, Beril and her guests will start producing this music. However, Beril will show us how she takes those sounds from Discord, and she will share examples. Well, you are going to listen to them from my microphone, maybe not very properly, but let me show you what I did with this throw effect. I heard of this straight sound, and the original one was like this. Can you hear that? Yes. Now let me show you how I transformed that. This actually represented the foundation of my whole sound, and it is heard like that. Beautiful. So this is the sort of infrastructure basis. I started doing things like that. Thank you to everyone for sending them. We are waiting in the Discord channel. We're waiting for the audios. I think you're going to have a small break, right? Yes. Thank you, Beril. You are there and you're trying to keep in touch with us as well. I wish you all the best. Thank you very much. Greetings, and we look forward to seeing you again. This project is very exciting for me indeed. Three NGAs, YGA, Beats by Girls, and IKEA as we comes together. We are going to see Beril in this hall, and we are going to have 4 guests, Dilan Balkay, Esin Şingöz, and Mirte Waitring. Please set your alarm clocks for 9:20. Now, this is one of the most interactive sessions of this summit. We always says that you're going to be participants rather than audience in this summit. This is the right moment. As you know, in the previous summits, we would have physical sessions and you were able to ask questions to our dream partners. We shared that to the digital atmosphere. Kaan Terzoğlu and Daya Makrash will be able to have your questions simultaneously soon. This session is called I Have a Question, and after that we are going to have a long break and we will meet at 8 p.m. again, and Mehmet Toner and Gökhan Hotamışlıgi will make the opening with their interview, and then at 9:20, we're going to listen to the project phase of the Sound of the Upside. We're going to join and produce together. Now, as you rest, we are moving on to another studio. See you in the evening.